When I went to the hospital after hearing that Rosie, my eldest son's wife, had given birth, I was met with a shocking insult. Rosie sneered at me, saying, "Since you're just a dirty farmer holding my daughter, it'll cost you $1,000 each time." Her words were a cruel jab at my occupation, implying that I was unworthy and unclean. My anger erupted. I had endured previous instances of disrespect, always striving to maintain a civil relationship because she was my son's wife, despite our differences. But this was the breaking point. Rosie's disdain for my profession, her blatant disrespect, and her mocking attitude had filled me with a profound sense of disgust. I resolved in my heart to sever all ties with her. Determined to make a statement, my husband and Anne left the hospital, choosing not to present the baby gift we had brought. I'm Risa, 63 years old. Since marrying my husband, a farmer, we've worked together in agriculture. We tied the knot in our mid-20s and were blessed with 2 wonderful sons. Farming is no easy task. It demands early mornings and relentless work with few days off. Despite the challenges, with support from family and neighbors, we managed to raise our boys well. Now grown, our sons have taken different paths. Our eldest, even, secured a position at a major IT company, while our younger son, Tim, works at City Hall. With the children grown, my life settled into a rhythm of work and leisurely moments like enjoying tea with neighbors. Tim married Sharon, a local classmate, a few years after starting his job, and they built a house nearby, visiting us often. Even, on the other hand, seemed entirely absorbed in his career and never spoke of marriage. As he approached 30, I grew increasingly concerned about his single status, but he appeared so content with his work that I hesitated to press him. Everything changed when Avon turned 35. He brought a woman home and introduced her, saying, "This is Rosie. We're dating and planning to get married." I was taken aback but inwardly thrilled when Avon introduced Rosie. She seemed a bit shy but charming and sweet. At 28, she was younger than Avon, though such age differences are not uncommon these days. I was delighted that Avon had found someone special, but Rosie's demeanor shifted noticeably when we discussed our work. "So, your parents are farmers?" she asked, her tone tinged with surprise. "Yes, that's right. We primarily grow leafy vegetables like arugula. The produce we harvest is really fresh and tasty. We just picked some this morning. Please take some with you. I'd love for you to try them." Rosie's smile faded into a look of discomfort. I wasn't sure if I had said something wrong, but before I could dwell on it, Avon smoothly changed the subject. As Avon and Rosie were preparing to leave, the tension lingered, leaving me with an uneasy feeling. "Oh, don't forget to take the vegetables," I said as I handed them to Rosie. She looked at them with a clear expression of disgust and muttered, "Dirty." "What?" I was taken aback. "They're covered in soil because they've just been harvested. They're in a plastic bag so they won't soil your car. Just wash them well before cooking." "I don't even want to eat such dirty vegetables." Her reaction left me in shock. "It's not that dirty, it's just a bit of soil. Why does it have to be such a big deal? Is farming considered so unclean? You don't have to go that far. I thought you were marrying Avon for his job and income, not judging his family's work. I didn't realize you'd be so dismissive." As I was about to respond to her insulting remarks about farming, Avon, who had been getting the car from the garage, walked over. "What's going on?" Avon asked, noticing the tension. "Rosie was." I began to explain. "It's nothing, Avon. Please just take these vegetables," I interjected, trying to defuse the situation. "They're offering," Rosie cut in loudly. Avon, still looking confused, took the vegetables from my hand. "Thanks, Mom. I'll call you later about the wedding and everything," he said before heading back to the car. Rosie followed him, but as soon as Avon wasn't looking, she leaned in close to me. "I have no intention of dealing with a farmer mother-in-law like you," Rosie hissed in a low voice meant only for my ears. I was stunned. It was shocking to hear that Avon's partner judged and insulted people based on their occupation. I began to worry about the future of their marriage. After that day, Avon was too busy with work to keep in touch. I wanted to discuss Rosie with him but never had the chance, leaving me with lingering concerns. Eventually, Avon married Rosie. I questioned whether she was the right choice, but Avon seemed so infatuated that my concerns likely went unheard. Despite our differences, I tried to set aside my worries as long as Avon was happy. From then on, I avoided interacting with Rosie as much as possible. 2 months after Avon's wedding, we planned a family gathering for a meal. I reached out to my sons, but Avon couldn't make it because of a business trip. Instead, Rosie would be coming alone. Rosie? Is she coming by herself? I asked, concerned. Yes, it's not far, and she said she'd be fine taking a taxi. As the wife of our eldest son, she should attend, don't you think, if she's comfortable with it? Despite this reassurance, I was anxious that she might not show up, as she had been avoiding our home. My concerns were confirmed when, on the morning of the event, I received a call from Rosie. I'm not feeling well today, so I can't make it. I see. Since Evan's away on his business trip, are you sure you'll be okay on your own? Think I'll feel better with some rest, so don't worry. I'm going to sleep now, so I'll hang up, Rosie said, ending the call abruptly. Her brusque manner left me a bit irritated, though I understood that she was unwell. Still, I couldn't dwell on it for long as I needed to focus on preparing the meal. Tim's wife, Sharon, graciously helped out, and we managed the preparations and cleanup efficiently. Sharon, thank you for your help, as always, I said. It's no problem at all. Is there anything else you need? No, everything is set. Oh, I received a cake. Would you lick some before you leave? Sure, I'd love some, Sharon replied. And what about you, Tim? Really? That sounds great, Tim responded, pleased with the offer. Tim nodded happily as I began preparing the cake and coffee. Just then, I received a call from a relative who had joined us earlier. How? Is something wrong? I asked. No, nothing's wrong. I was out shopping and saw someone who looks just like Rosie. She's having a good time with an unfamiliar man. I'll send you a picture. Could you take a look? After hanging up, the relative sent the photo. What's this? What's going on? I asked as I looked at the image. Wow, that does look like Rosie. I thought she was feeling unwell. That's what I heard, the relative replied. The photo clearly showed Rosie walking arm in arm with an unfamiliar man and looking anything but unwell. The possibility of cheating crossed my mind, but with just this evidence, we couldn't be certain. I was too stunned to speak. The lie about her illness was troubling enough, but the thought of her possibly cheating on Evan was overwhelming. Confronting her about it might lead to evasive explanations, and I was at a loss for how to tell Evan, who was eagerly looking forward to their wedding, that he might be deceived. Yes, you're right. Although they were legally married, the wedding ceremony was still 4 months away. Evan, despite his busy schedule, was dedicated to planning a beautiful celebration for Rosie. I couldn't bring myself to tell Evan that he might be cheated on, especially without solid evidence. Tim's comment left us all sighing in frustration. About 6 months later, Rosie gave birth to a child. Her pregnancy had come to light shortly after the suspicions of infidelity surfaced. Despite my lingering doubts about her fidelity, I was genuinely thrilled about the arrival of my first grandchild. When we heard the news, my husband and I went to the hospital. In the room, Rosie was holding the newborn. Congratulations on the birth. How are you feeling now? I asked. Still a bit tough, but better than I expected, Rosie replied. I'm glad to hear that. Is Evan at work? He was here until just a moment ago, but he left after getting a work call, Rosie said, gently stroking the baby. She's adorable. May I hold her? At my request, Rosie's expression soared. What? No, absolutely not. Don't touch her. Why would you say that? I asked, taken aback. Because it's dirty. Farmers always have dirt under their nails, don't they? I can't let such hands touch my daughter. She looked at me and my husband with disdain. If you really want to hold her, it'll cost you. Mother-in-law, you're dirty, so holding my daughter costs $1,000 each time. Given your background as farmers, you probably don't have that kind of money. I was overcome with anger as Rosie laughed mockingly. Despite my efforts to treat her with respect as my son's wife, even though we didn't get along, I had reached my breaking point. Rosie's contempt for people's occupations and her insulting remarks had filled me with disgust. I resolved in my heart that I would have nothing more to do with her. Then I'll give up, I said, and with that, I left the hospital without leaving the baby gift. Half a year later, Tim and his wife welcomed a long-awaited grandchild, a charming baby boy who was so adorable that everything he did seemed precious. As I was focusing on preparing for my grandson, Rosie suddenly arrived at our house. Hey, is it true that you bought Sharon a stroller and baby clothes? She demanded, her voice full of anger. I sighed. What's this about? Yes, we bought Sharon a stroller and clothes. Is there a problem with that? I asked. Why buy gifts only for Sharon? You never buy anything for my daughter, Rosie retorted. That's because you called me dirty, I replied. I figured you wouldn't want anything from someone you deemed unclean. Rosie's face twisted in frustration. Well, if I could get presents, it's a different story. I thought it was pointless to be nice since you're poor, but if you're giving such nice things, maybe it should have been more cordial. With a sigh, she continued, I'm surprised you could afford such a nice stroller on a farmer's income. It's a popular brand, even among celebrities, right? It was expensive, but it's lightweight and easy to maneuver, so I thought it was a good choice. And just so you know, despite what you say about being poor, we earn about $70,000 a year. There's no way a farmer can earn that much, Rosie said dismissively. I sighed again, frustrated with her ignorance. Our farm is large and efficient, with machinery that helps us harvest a substantial amount of vegetables. The quality of our produce allows us to sell at a higher price. We have contracts with restaurants across the country and sell directly, ensuring a stable income with no surplus. You clearly don't understand farming, yet you make such unfounded claims. I have no intention of continuing any association with you, so please leave. But it's unfair that you only bought gifts for Sharon. You didn't even give me a baby present, Rosie protested. I'm sorry, but I won't give a gift to someone who calls me dirty. We always give gifts to Sharon as a token of our appreciation for her help. She actively participates in family gatherings, assists with household chores, and even helps me with technology, which I'm not great with. It's our way of showing gratitude for her constant support. There's no reason to give gifts to someone like Rosie, who does nothing but make rude comments. Still dissatisfied, Rosie continued to complain loudly outside our house. As her ruckus started to attract unwanted attention from the neighbors, Even emerged from the house. What's going on here? He asked, clearly annoyed. What? Why is Even here? I thought you were at work, Rosie said, surprised. I took the day off. I needed to ask something, Even replied. Rosie gaped at his unexpected arrival. Evan then turned to her and asked, Why are you insulting my mother and demanding gifts? How can you say such things? It's not like that, Rosie stammered. Caught off guard in front of Even, who she had always tried to impress, Rosie began to panic. I just told her to stop because she tried to touch the baby with dirty hands. Then she got angry and started being mean to me. That's terrible, don't you think? You don't need to lie anymore. I can't trust you now, Rosie, Even said firmly. Why do you trust Mom over me? Rosie demanded. Because, Rosie, you've lied multiple times. You said you were too sick to attend the family gathering, but you were out having fun, weren't you? And then you told me you attended the gathering. Rosie shot me a furious glare in response to Even's accusations. Unfortunately, it wasn't me who revealed this to him. A relative who saw Rosie out shopping had informed Even. The same relative who sent me the photo had only mentioned that Rosie was out and about without revealing the details about the man. Evan's trust in Rosie diminished upon learning that she had lied. I've heard everything from Mom, Even continued. You've shown a lot of disrespect just because we're farmers. That's because farming is a job for people at the bottom of the social ladder, Rosie retorted. I never thought anyone decent would be involved in it. You insulted Mom and Dad based on your own prejudices without even knowing them. I'm truly disappointed in you, Rosie. I don't want to see you anymore, so please leave, Even said coldly. Rosie's face went pale at his words. Leave? You mean from the apartment? Yes, I can't live with you any longer. Please pack your things and go. The divorce papers will be sent through a lawyer. I'm sorry for what I said to your mother, but a divorce just for that seems excessive, Rosie protested. She clung to Even, tears welling in her eyes. It's not just about that, is it? Even's voice was colder and firmer than I had ever heard. You recognize the man in this photo, don't you? He held up the photo, showing Rosie with an unfamiliar man, the same person from the photo that had been sent by a relative on the day of the family gathering. Why do you have this? Rosie asked, her voice trembling. Actually, I received messages from various people saying they saw you being close with an unknown man, relatives and neighbors, Even explained. Why would they talk about me? Rosie asked, bewildered. People in the countryside love to gossip. Everyone was concerned that Even might be cheated on and quickly informed me. In small communities, news travels fast, and seeing Rosie with an unfamiliar man raised suspicions. I was advised to look into it. Rosie, I hired a detective, and they found a strong indication of infidelity. Rosie, realizing she couldn't escape the situation, glared at me with intense anger. This is why I hate the countryside. Cheating. And what about it? Evan asked. It's Evan's fault for neglecting me. I was lonely, Rosie snapped. If you were lonely, you should have told me directly, Evan responded. I thought it would be a bother, but I promise I won't cheat again. Please forgive me, Rosie pleaded, tears streaming down her face. Despite her distress, Evan's expression remained stern. You said you were lonely because I was always working, but this report shows you were involved with someone even before our marriage. What's that about? Are you still lying to deceive me? Evan asked. That's a lie. It's a false report, Rosie insisted. The report indicates you've been in a relationship with someone since college. You've broken up and gotten back together several times. We even know his name, so maybe it's time to stop lying, Evan said. Rosie's face went pale, and she began to tremble. From the photos, it looks like you've been buying quite expensive items. I didn't realize you were using my money for this. It was just impulse buying due to stress. Even so, you've spent a lot of money on brand name products, money I worked hard to earn. And on top of that, you've been unfaithful. I can't trust you anymore, Evan said firmly. Please, anything but divorce, Rosie begged, tears streaming down her face. Our daughter is still so young. I can't survive on my own if we divorce. Rosie clung to Evan, sobbing. I thought if she was going to act this way, she should have never cheated in the first place. It was too late for regrets now. I'm sorry, but my decision is final, Evan said. I'll be filing for divorce and seeking compensation for your infidelity. But our daughter is still so young, and I can't work. How will I manage to pay any compensation? Rosie pleaded. That's not my concern, Evan replied coldly. You betrayed me, so it's only fair that you face the consequences. I'll consult with a lawyer and let you know the amount later. Rosie seemed to realize that Evan was resolute. She stood up, her demeanor shifting to one of anger. You've been saying whatever you want. Don't you have a heart? If you're talking about compensation and divorce, then you need to pay child support. Can you come up with $100,000 right now for her upbringing until she turns 20? If you can't, I won't agree to the divorce. Rosie said this defiantly. Men have it easy. Even if you decide to leave me, you don't have to raise the child. At least fulfill your role as a father by paying child support. She likely thought this would put Evan in a difficult position. Rosie crossed her arms with a triumphant look, but Evan just snorted. Fine, I'll pay, but only if the child is actually mine. What do you mean? Rosie's face tensed immediately. I had noticed something unsettling since I first saw my granddaughter. As she grew, it became more apparent. She didn't resemble either Evan or Rosie. Today, after seeing the child again, I noticed her lighter pigmentation and droopy, large eyes. They seemed to resemble the man Rosie was seen with, not Evan. Seeing the face of the man Rosie cheated with, I became certain that the child looks like him. If Rosie has been involved with him since before our marriage, it's possible the child could be his. That's not true. She is your child, Evan, Rosie insisted. Then let's do a test to clarify things, Evan replied. Wait, there's no need for that, Rosie said, her desperation evident. Despite her pleas, no one was convinced. We need to settle this, Evan said firmly. If the test confirms she's my child, I'll pay $100,000 in child support as part of the divorce. If she isn't, I won't pay a dime. That's outrageous. You can't test a newborn baby, Rosie protested. It's possible. I know someone who has conducted such tests, Evan said, showing he was serious. Rosie's face turned pale, and she held her head in her hands. Regardless of the results, I'm proceeding with the divorce. Please leave the house today, Evan said. Wait, please, just listen one more time, Rosie pleaded, grabbing my hand. Mother-in-law, you love your granddaughter, don't you? I'll let you hold her as much as you want. Just forgive me. Rosie clung to me, but I had no intention of forgiving her after all the disrespect she had shown. It doesn't matter anymore. I don't need to hold her. Please stay out of our lives. How can you say that? Rosie cried out, but Evan ignored her pleas and closed the front door. For a while, the sound of Rosie pounding on the door and shouting filled the air. But she eventually left when neighbors began to gather. With Rosie successfully removed from our lives, I was relieved to cut ties with her as well. Later, a DNA test confirmed that the child was not Evan's. As a result, Rosie was not entitled to child support and instead faced the financial burden of paying compensation. Having been ousted from the house, Rosie turned to the man she had cheated with for help. However, he abandoned her, unwilling to care for the child. With no other options, Rosie returned to her parents' home in Philadelphia, a remote area even more isolated than where we lived. The news of her return spread quickly in the rural community, including details of her infidelity and abandonment. She now seems to be living a quiet, uncomfortable life. After the divorce, Evan threw himself into his work and earned a promotion. With no personal expenses, he generously took my husband and me on a trip, citing his newfound financial freedom. Given Evan's family-oriented nature, I believe you will make a wonderful husband and father in the future. I genuinely hope for beautiful new beginnings for Evan in his life ahead.
Hey there. I'm Samantha Wheeler, and before I get into this crazy story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you won't miss a single moment of the drama happening in my office. Now, let me set the scene. I'm 35 years old, living my best, or maybe busiest, life as a marketing executive in the heart of Norfolk. My days are packed with pitch meetings, late nights at the office, and way too much coffee. Samantha, you're going to burn out if you keep this up, my coworker Abigail says as she glances at the clock. She watches me finish another presentation for a big client. I shrug. I can't help it. The Hendrick account is driving me crazy. Abigail smirks. Speaking of crazy, where's that trail mix you always keep in your drawer? I pause, realizing my snack drawer is suspiciously empty again. I frown. Gone. I swear, Abigail, I'm not losing my mind. Someone's been stealing my snacks. Abigail chuckles. Bet you $5 it's Austin, she whispers, nodding towards the cubicle next to mine. Ah, Austin Swift. The office charmer. He's the guy with a smile so smooth he could probably sell ice to an Eskimo. Too bad that smile hides his true self. Did you actually see him near my desk? I ask, narrowing my eyes. Not exactly, but come on. He's always mooching off people, whether it's their ideas, their work, or, apparently, their food. Why not your snacks too? Abigail leans back, clearly entertained by the thought. I sigh, rubbing my temples. I can't just accuse him without proof. HR would have a field day. Then get proof, Abigail suggests, her eyes lighting up with mischief. Before I can respond, my phone buzzes. It's my sister, Gloria. Samantha, emergency. The florist just canceled. Gloria's panicked voice echoes through the phone. I groan. Wedding drama. Just what I needed on top of everything else. Take a deep breath, Gloria. We'll figure it out, I say, trying to calm her down. After hanging up, I slump back in my chair. My to-do list just got a lot longer. Suddenly, Austin strolls over with that same cocky grin plastered on his face. Ladies, working hard or hardly working, he jokes. I resist the urge to roll my eyes. What do you need, Austin? Just wondering if you have those projections for the Morton account. Team meetings in 10 minutes. My blood boils. Those were my projections, and he clearly procrastinated on his part of the work. Still, I keep my cool. Sure, Austin. I'll email them over, I say through gritted teeth. As he walks away, Abigail leans in close and whispers, See? Total freeloader. I sigh again. Office life, it's always something, isn't it? Whether it's wedding chaos, snack thieves, or coworkers like Austin, there's never a dull moment. I nod, an idea forming in my head. The rest of the day passes in a blur, filled with meetings, last-minute tasks, and putting out fires. By the time I'm packing up to leave, I catch Austin hovering near my desk, his eyes darting toward my drawer. Night, Samantha. Don't work too hard, he says, all innocence, flashing me his signature grin. I force a polite smile. Night, Austin. As soon as he's gone, I turn to Abigail. Okay, Operation Snack Thief is officially on. Abigail's face lights up. Finally, let's do this. We start setting up the trap. I feel a mix of excitement and nervousness as we work. This was more than just catching a snack thief. It was about principle. Little did I know this was the start of a workplace showdown that would change everything. The next morning, I walk into the office with a plan ready to go. My secret weapon? A fake lottery ticket tucked inside my lunch bag. If Austin really was the snack thief, this would lure him in. Morning, Samantha. You're looking awfully cheerful today, Abigail says as I pass her desk, raising an eyebrow. Oh, just feeling lucky, I reply with a wink, patting my bag. I settle into my desk, double-checking that my hidden camera pen is perfectly positioned. The stage was set. It doesn't take long for Austin to make his move. He strolls over, coffee in hand, his usual confident grin plastered across his face. Hey, Samantha, got any of those amazing homemade cookies today? I smile, playing along. Sorry, Austin, not today. But I do have a pretty awesome lunch planned. He looks a little disappointed, but I see a spark in his eye. Hook, line, and sinker. As the morning drags on, I keep one eye on my bag and the other on my work. Any moment now. Suddenly, my phone buzzes. It's Amber, my boss. Samantha, can you come to my office?
Now.
My heart skips a beat. What could this be about? I take a deep breath and head over. Amber sits behind her desk, her usual stern expression in place. This was serious. Close the door, Samantha, she says. I sit down, palms sweating. What's going on, Amber? We're looking at promoting someone to lead the new digital marketing division, she begins. Your name is on the list. I almost choke. Seriously? That's wow. Amber holds up a hand. Don't celebrate just yet. Austin is also being considered. Of course he is. I bite my tongue to stop a groan from escaping. The decision will be based on your performance over the next few weeks. Keep this between us, Amber says firmly. I nod, my mind racing. Great. Now I had to catch a snack thief and outperform Austin for a promotion. Got it, I reply, determined to tackle it all. The game was officially on. I nod, my mind racing as I leave Amber's office. This promotion just became even more important. Walking back to my desk, I spot Austin lingering nearby, pretending to look busy. It's time to set my plan in motion. Grabbing my phone, I put on my best urgent call act. Hello? Yes, this is Samantha Wheeler. Oh no. Really? Okay, I'll be right there. I rush out of the office, leaving my lunch bag in plain sight on my desk. From a corner of the hallway, I watch Austin glance around nervously. He casually strolls over to my desk, acting like he's just passing by. Then he starts rummaging through my bag. My heart pounds as I hold my breath. Suddenly, his eyes widen. Bingo! He's found the fake lottery ticket. Trying to be discreet, he pockets it quickly and walks away, looking around to make sure no one saw him. I smile to myself. The bait worked perfectly. I return to my desk, pretending nothing happened. Abigail catches my eye and leans over, whispering, "Did it work?" I nod, grinning. Like a charm. The rest of the day, I keep a close eye on Austin. He's acting jittery, constantly checking his phone. During our afternoon team meeting, his distracted behavior is impossible to miss. Earth to Austin. Geraldo, our colleague, jokes. What's up? You win the lottery or something? Austin laughs nervously, his face turning red. What? No. Just, thinking about a big account. Yeah, right. I think, hiding a smirk behind my notebook. He's not fooling anyone, well, not me, at least. As the day wears on, office gossip starts to swirl. Marilyn from accounting rushes over to my desk, looking panicked. Did you hear? She whispers. They're saying Wheeler's account is pulling out. There might be layoffs. My stomach sinks. Wheeler's account is one of our biggest clients. If the rumors are true, the stakes for this promotion just got a lot higher. Are you sure? I ask, trying to keep calm. That's a massive account. Marilyn nods grimly. Straight from finance. Things are about to get messy. As I finish up my work and pack my things, Austin approaches. He's practically buzzing with excitement, trying to act casual but failing miserably. Hey, Samantha, he says with a grin. Crazy day, huh? Listen, I was thinking maybe we could grab a drink sometime, talk about the future. Big plans and all. I resist the urge to roll my eyes. Thanks, Austin, but I'm swamped with this new project. Maybe another time. He nods eagerly, his grin widening. Sure. No rush. We've got all the time in the world, right? I smile politely, but my thoughts are elsewhere. If only you knew, Austin. I think as I head out, things are about to get very interesting. I felt a mix of satisfaction and nervousness. The trap was set, but now the stakes were much higher. Between the promotion and the rumors about layoffs, everything felt like it was hanging by a thread. Over the next few days, Austin started acting like he had already hit the jackpot. Well, in his mind, he had. He strutted around the office with a new kind of confidence, whispering to anyone who would listen. "Samantha," Abigail hissed from her desk one afternoon, "what's Austin telling Geraldo over there?" I leaned in, trying to catch what he was saying. His voice carried just enough for me to hear him say, "Just waiting for the funds to clear. Then I'm out of here. Thinking Bali, maybe." I couldn't believe my ears. "Unbelievable," I muttered to Abigail. "He's planning vacations while the rest of us are worrying about losing our jobs." "Speaking of which," Abigail added, "have you noticed how empty his desk has been? He's barely been around." That gave me an idea. I quickly typed up an anonymous email to HR, detailing Austin's frequent absences. I didn't want to come off as vindictive. It was just time for someone to take notice of his behavior. Later that day, we all gathered for an important presentation to save the Wheeler account, one of our biggest clients. The tension in the room was thick. Austin swaggered in late, looking disheveled and completely unprepared. "All right, Austin, show us what you've got," Amber said, raising an eyebrow. Austin shuffled his notes and started fumbling through his words. Yes, the Wheeler account. So, we're going to increase engagement by..." His voice trailed off as he stared blankly at his papers. The clients exchanged worried glances. I knew I had to step in. "Perhaps we should take a short break," I said smoothly. "I have some additional materials that might interest everyone." As the group left the room, I grabbed Austin's arm. "What the hell, Austin? This is our biggest account. Are you even trying?" He shrugged me off, smirking. "Relax, Samantha. None of this matters anymore. I've got bigger fish to fry." I was fuming, but there was no time to argue. When we reconvened, I took charge of the presentation. I gave it everything I had: clear slides, strong data, and a compelling vision for the account's future. By the end, the clients were nodding enthusiastically, and Amber's expression softened into approval. "Excellent work, Samantha," she said. Then she turned to Austin. "Austin, a word in my office, please." As they left, Geraldo approached me, looking embarrassed. "Hey, Samantha. This is kind of awkward, but could I borrow $1,800? Austin promised to pay me back double once his big windfall comes through." I stared at him, speechless for a moment. Austin's lies were spreading fast, but now the truth was unraveling even faster. This was far from over. I stare at Geraldo, completely stunned. "Wait, how much did you give him?" He shifts uncomfortably, avoiding my eyes. "About $2,000, he mutters. "But it's fine." He showed me the ticket and everything. My heart sinks. This has gone way too far. I try to stay calm, but inside I'm boiling. Austin's lies are dragging everyone down with him. Later, as I'm organizing files for the Wheeler account, I notice something strange. The strategies and ideas in the files, they're mine. Every single one of them. But they've all been signed off by Austin. "What a sneaky little thief," I mutter under my breath. I dig deeper, finding email after email where he's taken credit for my work. This wasn't just about snacks or a fake lottery ticket anymore. Austin had been stealing my ideas all along. Furious, I start copying everything into a separate folder. As I'm finishing up, Austin bursts into the office, looking panicked. "Samantha, I need to borrow some cash. It's an emergency." I cross my arms and give him a hard look. "What kind of emergency, Austin?" He glances around, then leans in, whispering like we're in on some big secret. "Look, I can't say too much, but let's just say I'm about to come into a lot of money. I just need a little to tide me over. I'll pay you back triple, I swear." I shake my head, disgusted. "Sorry, Austin. I'm not a bank and I don't hand out loans." His face twists in frustration as he storms off, muttering something under his breath. I turn back to my computer, my resolve hardening. Enough is enough. Austin's lies, his theft, and his freeloading ends now. I start gathering everything, the emails where he stole my ideas, the records of his absences, and even testimonies from coworkers who loaned him money. Piece by piece, I build a solid case. Austin's house of cards is about to collapse, and I'm going to be the one to push it over. The next day, the office buzzes with chatter as Austin walks in like he owns the place. He's wearing a suit that probably costs more than my rent. He claps his hands together and smirks. "Gather round, peasants," he announces loudly. "Your golden boy is moving on to greener pastures." I exchange a baffled look with Abigail, who mouths, "What the hell?" Austin grins like a Cheshire cat, basking in everyone's attention. That's right, folks. I've hit the jackpot. No more late nights, no more deadlines, no more Amber breathing down my neck. I'm leaving this dump behind. Amber emerges from her office, her face thunderous. "Austin, what's the meaning of this?" He laughs obnoxiously, spreading his arms wide. "Oh, Amber, sweet, simple Amber. I don't have to explain myself to you anymore. I'm rich, baby." I bite my lip to hide my smirk. Little did Austin know his charade was about to come crashing down, and he was standing on the edge of the cliff. I can't believe what I'm hearing. Austin's arrogance has gone too far. It's time to put an end to this once and for all. "Actually, Austin," I say, stepping forward, my voice steady but firm, "I think you do need to explain yourself." The room falls silent as I pull out a folder and hand it to Amber. This contains evidence of Austin's theft of intellectual property, fraudulent reports, and manipulation of company resources. I say clearly. Austin's smug grin vanishes, replaced by panic. What? That's ridiculous. You're just jealous of my success." "Success?" I scoff, holding up a printout of the fake lottery ticket. "You mean this?" "Hate to break it to you, Austin, but your so-called jackpot is as fake as your work ethic." The office erupts into chaos. Geraldo, red-faced with fury, lunges at Austin, shouting about the money he's owed. Others chime in, demanding explanations for their own grievances. It's a storm of voices and accusations. "Security," Amber yells, her voice cutting through the noise. "Escort Mr. Swift out of the building." Austin struggles as security guards appear, still protesting his innocence. "This is a setup. You'll regret this," he shouts as they drag him out. His words fall on deaf ears. "Samantha, my office." "Now," Amber says firmly, turning to me. My heart races as I follow her, unsure of what's about to happen. Amber sits down at her desk, her face unreadable. "Sit," she says, gesturing to the chair opposite her. "Explain everything." I take a deep breath and recount the entire story, from the stolen snacks to the fake lottery ticket and Austin's escalating behavior. As I speak, Amber listens intently. Her expression shifts from disbelief to anger, and then to something I can only describe as admiration. "Well, Samantha," she says at last, her tone measured, "I must say, I'm impressed. Not with your methods, mind you, but with your initiative and dedication to this company." I brace myself, expecting a reprimand. But, Amber continues, a small smile playing on her lips, "It's exactly why I'm offering you Austin's position. Effective immediately." I stare at her, stunned. "Really? I mean, thank you, Amber. I won't let you down." Over the next few weeks, the office undergoes a transformation. I implement new policies focused on transparency, teamwork, and accountability. Slowly but surely, morale improves, and the team thrives. We land 3 major new accounts, and the energy in the office is the best it's been in years. As for Austin, his downfall is nothing short of spectacular. News trickles in that he tried to claim his lottery winnings, only to be laughed out of the lottery office when they revealed his ticket was fake. He vanished after that, leaving behind a legacy of embarrassment. Life in the office isn't perfect, but it's better than it's ever been. And as I settle into my new role, I can't help but feel a sense of pride. Justice was served, and the future looks brighter than ever. 2 months later, I found myself at my sister's wedding, standing at the center of the room with a glass in hand, ready to give my maid of honor speech. The air buzzed with joy and excitement as everyone settled in to listen. I took a deep breath and began. "Life's funny," I said with a smile. "Sometimes the path to success isn't straight. It's full of twists, turns, and even a few people who try to take advantage of you." The crowd chuckled, and I glanced at Abigail sitting near the back. She gave me an enthusiastic thumbs up, and I couldn't help but grin. "But if there's one thing I've learned," I continued, "it's this: integrity and perseverance always win in the end." So, here's to the bride and groom, and to facing life's challenges head-on. Applause erupted as I raised my glass, and the bride and groom beamed with happiness. The moment was perfect, filled with love, laughter, and new beginnings. But just as I sat down, my phone buzzed. Curious, I glanced at the screen. It was a news alert. "Former marketing executive arrested for fraud," the headline read. I couldn't suppress the small smile creeping across my face. Karma, I thought. Austin finally got what was coming to him. Apparently, after his dramatic exit from the office, Austin had burned bridges everywhere. He'd scammed so many people that his lies finally caught up to him. Angry creditors, duped coworkers, and false promises had piled up, and now the law had taken notice. Austin wasn't just a disgraced former coworker anymore. He was facing serious consequences. It felt like the final chapter of a wild story. Justice had been served, and in Austin's case, it wasn't just a dish best served cold. It was a full-course meal. The thought of him trying to explain himself in court almost made me laugh out loud. But as I sat there, a question popped into my head. If I were to go back and relive those moments, would I have done anything differently? Would I have exposed Austin's fraud immediately, or let him dig his own grave like I did? Was my approach justified, or did I cross an ethical line somewhere along the way? I decided to throw the question to my audience. What would you have done in my shoes? I ask. Would you have confronted Austin right away, or let him unravel his own lies like I did? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your take on this office showdown. Before I left, I added one last note. And if you enjoyed this wild tale of workplace drama and justice, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe for more juicy stories. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. As I looked around the room, surrounded by my family, friends, and newfound clarity, I realized one thing. Life has a way of rewarding patience and integrity. And for people like Austin, well, karma takes care of the rest. I never thought one choice could tear apart everything I believed was steady in my life. My name is Janet, and I'm in my late 40s. For the last 10 years, I've worked at my husband Sean's family business in Portland. It was supposed to be a fresh start, a chance to combine my skills with Sean's drive. But looking back, I realized I was walking into trouble I wasn't ready for. The business, small with only 9 employees, is run by Sean's dad, Kevin. Kevin likes to stay out of the day-to-day work, leaving it all to Sean, who's being groomed to take over. This setup seemed fine until it wasn't. My job, handling the operations, was important, but it came with its problems. I thought I was helping, but it only made things worse within the family. Most of the trouble came from Sean's mom, Brenda. She's in her early 70s and retired from her career, supposedly to take care of the house. But she hardly did any of the home duties, leaving me to handle both work at the firm and the house chores. Every day I spent in the office seemed to make Brenda more uncomfortable. The breaking point came one hot afternoon. We had been arguing about something small, or at least it seemed small at the time. In one of her usual fits of anger, Brenda threw a hot cup of coffee on my shirt. It was like all her built-up anger had exploded in that moment. I stood there, shocked, as the burning liquid soaked through my blouse, burning my skin. Brenda's face showed a mix of anger and satisfaction. "You've ruined everything," she said, her voice full of bitterness. But it wasn't just the coffee that broke me, it was what happened next. Brenda announced that her younger son, Brian, would be taking over my role. Brian was only 19, fresh back from Florida after dropping out of college. He was nowhere near ready for the job, but Brenda didn't care. She acted like all my years of hard work didn't matter. She even handed me a resignation letter she had already written and had the security guards escort me out. I left that building feeling betrayed, my heart heavy. How could everything unravel so quickly? I couldn't believe how everything I had worked for could just fall apart so quickly. Losing my place in both the firm and our home left me feeling lost. I knew I needed to talk to Sean and Kevin, but I was scared of what they might say. Sean, always the calm one, suggested I take a break to clear my mind. Kevin, although less emotional, also thought some time away might help. With a heavy heart, I agreed and decided to take a short trip, hoping that some distance would give me clarity. While I was away, I got an urgent call from Brian. His voice was shaky as he admitted he was overwhelmed. Brenda had assured him the job would be easy, but that wasn't the case. Brian was struggling with the basics like accounting, managing the staff, and handling daily tasks. It became clear that Brenda had underestimated how difficult the job I had been doing for years actually was. When I returned, the mood at the firm was even tenser. Sean and Kevin told me that Brian had made some serious mistakes. One of the worst was a mishandling of a major client, putting the future of the firm in danger. My heart sank as I realized Brian's errors could ruin everything we had built. Kevin, faced with this situation, said the firm would probably have to merge with a larger company. He and Sean thought it was the only way to save the business. Brenda's reaction was explosive. She was furious and insisted that Sean should take full control of the firm instead of allowing a merger. Her refusal to face reality only made things more stressful. During this chaotic time, Kevin made an even more shocking announcement. He had decided to divorce Brenda. The accusations he threw at her were harsh, neglecting her duties at home, undermining my role in the business, and even having affairs. Brenda's shock and anger were obvious, and the family's relationships grew even more strained. Kevin's decision to kick Brenda and Brian out of the family home and arrange for them to stay temporarily, with a friend added to the confusion. It felt like everything was crumbling around us. As I struggled with losing my place in both the firm and our home, something unexpected happened. In the middle of all this chaos, there was a small ray of hope that would soon change our future. The days after being pushed out of the firm and our home were filled with confusion and heartbreak, but something better was waiting just around the corner. I spent the first few days in a small cabin by the lake, trying to make sense of everything that had happened and what my future might look like. The peaceful surroundings did little to calm the storm inside me. I felt lost, like I had no clear direction. Sean and Kevin were supportive, telling me to use this time to reflect. Their kindness helped, but it didn't take away the deep sense of betrayal I felt. Sean had always been my source of strength, but I could see the stress this situation was putting on him. He was struggling with his responsibility to the firm and his family. Not long after, my phone rang, and I saw Brian's name on the screen. My heart sank. I had hoped I wouldn't have to deal with him after everything that had happened, but his voice was full of worry, and I knew I had to listen. "Janet, I don't know what to do," Brian said, his voice shaky. "Everything is falling apart. I thought I could handle it, but I'm lost. I don't even know how to do the accounting, and I'm struggling with the staff." Hearing him admit this hit me hard. This was Brenda's youngest son, who had been given my job without any thought, now drowning in the role. Brenda had made it sound so easy, but Brian's struggles showed how much she had underestimated the difficulties I had been managing for years. Despite the pain I felt, I couldn't help but feel sorry for Brian. He had been thrown into a situation far beyond his abilities. I gave him some advice over the phone, but I knew it was only a temporary fix. Brian needed more help than I could give from a distance. After the call, I tried to focus back on my own life. I spent my days walking by the lake, reading and trying to clear my mind. Sean and Kevin visited me from time to time, but the news they brought about the firm was never good. Brian's mistakes were piling up. Clients were leaving, and financial issues were growing. It was clear the firm was in serious trouble. One day, Sean came with a serious look on his face. He told me that he and Kevin had decided to face the situation head-on. "Brian's mistakes have put us in a tough spot," Sean said. "Kevin and I have talked it over, and he thinks the firm might need to merge with a larger company. It's the only way to save it." The news was both surprising and expected. I knew the firm was struggling, but the thought of merging felt like giving up. I could see how much this was weighing on Sean. This decision wasn't made easily. Kevin truly believed merging was the only option, but Brenda was completely against it. She wanted Sean to take full control, thinking that merging meant giving up. As if things weren't already complicated, Kevin dropped another bombshell. He announced he was planning to divorce Brenda. The reasons were painful and personal. Kevin accused Brenda of neglecting her duties at home and of undermining the work I had done at the firm. He even revealed that she had been involved in affairs. The news shocked everyone, including me. The family was falling apart, and Kevin's decision to ask both Brenda and Brian to leave caused even more anger and confusion. Their departure left the house tense and full of unresolved issues. I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. On one hand, Brenda's exit meant I wouldn't have to face her anymore, but on the other hand, her absence left a gap that was hard to ignore. With Brenda and Brian gone, it was now up to Sean, Kevin, and me to deal with the aftermath. Preparing for the merger was a massive task. The employees were nervous, unsure of what the future held. Kevin and Sean worked nonstop to make the transition as smooth as possible. It was exhausting, but there was a small sense of hope in the hard work we were doing to stabilize the firm. During this time, I tried to find some balance. I focused on myself, using the quiet moments to reflect and think about what I wanted for my future. I was starting to settle into this new routine when something unexpected happened. I found out I was pregnant. The news of my pregnancy was a turning point. It came as a surprise and brought a whirlwind of emotions, happiness, fear, and a new sense of purpose. In the middle of all the chaos, this tiny spark of hope gave me a renewed drive. It felt like life was giving me a chance to start fresh, to create something beautiful out of all the wreckage. As I prepared for the changes ahead, I knew there would be challenges. The firm was facing a major shift, and my personal life was about to change in a big way. But for the first time in a long while, I felt clear-headed. The future was uncertain, but it also held the promise of new beginnings. The days after the announcement of the merger, along with the family struggles, were filled with difficult negotiations and emotional battles. But I was ready to face whatever came next. I had returned to Portland, trying to adjust to the new reality. The house felt different without Brenda and Brian. It was quieter, but the silence was heavy with unresolved issues and past hurts. Sean and Kevin were working nonstop on the merger. The firm, which had been my professional home for 10 years, was about to become part of a larger company. This wasn't just a business deal, it was an emotional roller coaster. The employees were anxious about their futures, and the responsibility weighed heavily on everyone. Sean, always calm, was involved in every part of the merger. "Janet, it's going to be okay," he would tell me, though I could see the stress in his eyes. "We're doing everything we can to make sure the firm comes out stronger." Kevin was just as focused. He had thrown himself into the merger negotiations with determination, guiding the firm through this tough time just as he had during my years working there. Still, there was a distance between us now, created by the recent family problems and personal revelations. One day, while I was going through old papers in the office, I found a stack of photos from the early days of the firm. They reminded me of how much we had built together. The firm wasn't just a business, it was a symbol of years of hard work and commitment. As I looked through the pictures, I couldn't help but feel a sense of longing for the times when things were simpler. While the merger was happening, Sean and I were also dealing with the changes in our family. The news of my pregnancy had spread, and people had mixed reactions. Some were happy for us, offering congratulations, while others seemed unsure about what the future held for us. I remember one evening when Sean and I sat in the living room, talking about everything that was going on. "Janet, I know this is a lot to deal with," Sean said, his voice full of concern. "But we're in this together. The firm will be okay, and we'll figure out how to handle everything." His words were reassuring, but the future still felt uncertain. The merger was a big step, and it was hard to know how it would affect both our personal lives and the firm's future. The reality of becoming parents added another layer of complexity to everything. I wanted to feel excited about the baby growing inside me, but I couldn't stop worrying about how it would fit into our already complicated lives. As the day of the merger came closer, the atmosphere at the firm was filled with nervous anticipation. The employees were getting ready for the changes, and Sean and Kevin were finalizing everything. I tried to stay positive and supportive, even though it was clear that the merger was a big change for everyone involved. Just when it seemed like things were starting to settle into a new routine, a new problem came up. Brenda and Brian, who had been staying with a friend, reached out to me. Brenda wanted to meet, and even though I had my doubts, I agreed. The meeting was uncomfortable, with a lot of unspoken tension. "I didn't come here to fight," Brenda said, her voice tired. "I just wanted to see how you're doing. I know things ended badly, and I regret how it all happened." Her words were a mix of apology and defensiveness. She had always been hard to read, and this meeting was no different. I could tell she was struggling with everything that had happened, especially the divorce. Brian, sitting quietly next to her, looked tired and unsure. "I appreciate you reaching out," I said, trying to stay calm. "But it's been hard for all of us. I hope you understand why things turned out the way they did." Brenda nodded, though she still looked guarded. "I just want things to be better for everyone." The meeting didn't fix everything, but it gave a small sense of understanding. Brenda was dealing with her own issues, and Brian was still trying to find his place after being put in a role that was too much for him. Once the merger was done, and the firm was moving forward, Sean and I started to focus more on our personal lives. Getting ready for the baby became something exciting and hopeful. We began to picture a future that wasn't just about the business, but also about the new life we were about to welcome. As the firm settled into its new structure, there was a sense of renewal. The transition had been tough, but it also brought some positive changes. The employees were adjusting, and Sean and Kevin were working hard to strengthen the firm's position in the market. In the last few weeks before the baby arrived, we were filled with a mix of excitement and preparation. Sean and I worked on making our home ready for our growing family. It was a new chapter for us, one that would bring both challenges and joys. Despite all the turmoil and uncertainties, there was a feeling of hope in the air. The firm was starting to recover, and our personal lives were moving in a new and positive direction. The past had been tough, but it had also opened the door for new beginnings. As the final days of my pregnancy drew near, I found myself thinking about the whirlwind of events that had brought us to this point. Life had thrown its challenges our way, and this past year had been no different. Yet, despite all the ups and downs, I felt a sense of peace and excitement as I prepared for our baby's arrival. It was the start of a new chapter, a fresh beginning in the midst of the chaos. Sean and I had found a new routine, balancing the demands of the firm while getting ready for our baby. The merger had gone through successfully, and the firm was starting to find its stability under the new structure. Things were calming down, though the road to get here had been far from smooth. One evening, as Sean and I sat together in the living room, we talked about what was ahead. "Janet, I know it hasn't been easy," Sean said, gently placing his hand on my stomach. "But I'm proud of how we've handled everything, and I'm excited for what's next." His words were reassuring. The past months had been filled with both stress and hope, and it was comforting to know we were moving forward together. Despite all the challenges, the thought of becoming parents brought us joy and excitement. We were looking forward to this new beginning, a welcome change from the turmoil of the past year. When our baby finally arrived, it was a moment of pure joy. Holding our child for the first time filled me with so much love and hope. It made all the struggles we had faced feel worth it. This baby was a reminder of what truly mattered, a symbol of new beginnings. As we adjusted to life with our newborn, we also saw a renewed sense of purpose. At the same time, the firm was settling into its new role. The merger had brought big changes, but it also opened doors for growth. Sean and Kevin worked closely with the new partners to ensure everything ran smoothly, and it became clear that the firm was on the road to recovery. The employees, who had been worried about the changes, now seemed more hopeful. The new structure gave them opportunities to grow, and it was satisfying to see the firm finding its way again. There was a growing sense of stability and a fresh energy in the workplace. However, amidst these positive changes, there were still unresolved issues with Brenda and Brian. They had been staying with a friend since they left our home, and their situation was far from the stability they once had. I had mixed feelings about their situation. On one hand, I felt some sympathy for what they were going through. On the other hand, the hurt from their actions was still fresh. One day, Brenda reached out to me again, but this time the conversation was different. "Janet," she said, her voice softer than before. "I wanted to thank you for giving us the chance to make things right. I know I made mistakes, and I regret how things turned out. I hope we can find a way to move forward." Her words were a step toward healing, though I knew it wouldn't be easy. Still, I appreciated the gesture and saw her sincerity. "Brenda, I think we all have things to work on," I replied, "but I hope we can find a way to move forward and rebuild what's been broken." Brian also expressed his desire to make amends. He had struggled with his role in the firm and the fallout from our family's issues, but he was trying to find his way again. "I'm sorry for everything," he told me during one of our talks. "I know I didn't handle things well, and I want to make things right." It was a small step, but it was a start. Forgiving and rebuilding trust takes time, and I knew it wouldn't happen overnight. But there was a glimmer of hope that, with time, we could mend the fractures and move forward. As the days passed, the focus shifted more toward our family and the future. The firm was on a good path, and Sean and I were finding our balance as new parents. The challenges of the past year had taught us a lot about strength, love, and the importance of family. This new chapter in our lives was full of hope and possibility. We were learning how to balance both personal and professional responsibilities, but there was a new sense of purpose in everything we did. The trials we had faced had brought us closer and helped us see what truly mattered. Looking ahead, I felt hopeful about the future. The journey had been hard, but it had also brought us together and taught us valuable lessons. We were ready to embrace whatever new opportunities and challenges came our way, confident that we could handle them as a family. In the end, our family story was one of growth and change. We had faced tough times, made difficult choices, and dealt with complex emotions, but through it all, we had found hope and a new sense of purpose. As we looked toward the future, we knew it would be shaped by the lessons we had learned and the strength we had gained. I never imagined I'd be here, feeling like a stuffed sausage in this wedding dress. My belly is so swollen from the twins growing inside me, and the tight corset of the gown is pressing hard against my ribs with every breath I take. I sit at the head table, watching everything happening around me, but it feels like I'm not even part of my own wedding. The guests are drinking and dancing to the lively music, but their joy feels so far away from where I am right now. My new husband, James, is sitting at the next table, drinking more and more as the night goes on. His mother, Brenda, is busy talking and laughing with the high society ladies, and her laughter is really getting on my nerves. My legs are sore, my back is aching, and these babies won't stop moving. I can't help but think how absurd this all is. We begged James's family to let us marry before I started showing, but Brenda always found a reason to delay. Now here I am, with my pregnancy on full display for everyone to see. Feeling overwhelmed, I decide I need to use the restroom, something that has become all too common with this difficult pregnancy. As I wobble my way out of the hall, lifting the long train of my dress, I overhear Brenda talking to one of her fancy lady friends. My heart sinks when I hear her say, "Oh, Nicole, I just don't know how to handle this disaster. My James must have lost his mind, bringing home this girl from an orphanage and getting her pregnant with twins." I nearly fainted when I realized we'd have to go through with this wedding. Why is all of this on my shoulders? We don't even know if the babies are his. She's smart enough to lie her way into a home in the capital, and James, bless his heart, is too naive, saying he loves her. What a burden this is. I thought he would marry Shirley, the architect's lovely daughter, not this beggar. Her words hit me hard, like knives twisting in my chest. I clear my throat loudly, startling Brenda. She turns to me, quickly putting on a fake smile and speaking in a sweet, sing-song voice. "Olivia, dear, are you feeling okay? You look pale. Let me have the driver take you home. You need rest in your condition. Go home. We'll finish the party without you." As I stand there, hurt and insulted, I can't help but wonder how I ended up in this situation, married to a man whose mother clearly hates me. Is this really the life I want for myself and my children? I find myself wishing for a mother figure to guide me through all this chaos. The faces of the kind nurses from the orphanage flash in my mind. I wish one of them were here now, offering comfort and advice as I face this overwhelming situation. Growing up without parents, I've always felt an emptiness inside me, but never as strongly as I do in this moment. I wonder what it would feel like to have a mother to turn to, someone to hold my hand and tell me everything is going to be okay. But I know there's no point in thinking about what I don't have. I've survived on my own before, and I'll do it again this time for my babies. They may not have grandparents or a father, but they'll have me, and I'll make sure I'm enough for them. I straighten my shoulders, feeling a strength I didn't know I had. It's time for me to become the mother I always wished I had. Lying here, with my pillow wet from tears, I can't believe how my wedding day turned into such a nightmare. The memory of Brenda's fake smile and sugary sweet voice still makes my stomach turn. I left my own reception, surrounded by strangers who looked down on me with disdain. Their judgment hung in the air, as heavy as the perfume they wore. I prayed that James would notice I was gone, that he would come rushing after me, full of love and concern. But here I am, alone, while the party continues without the bride. It feels like a cruel joke, as if I'm unimportant and easily forgotten. The sound of the front door opening snaps me out of my thoughts. James stumbles in at dawn, smelling of alcohol and expensive perfume. He doesn't even make it to the bed. He just collapses on the floor, still fully dressed. As I listen to his drunken snores, I feel a wave of nausea that has nothing to do with my pregnancy. This isn't the marriage I dreamed of, not even close. My mind drifts back to how beautifully our love began, such a sharp contrast to this bitter reality. I can barely remember my life before the orphanage, just scattered memories. I recall a woman's pleading voice, telling me not to cry, and that I'd be going to live somewhere else. At 4 years old, I arrived at the orphanage, not speaking much, not knowing who I was or where I came from. I slowly adjusted, always quiet and reserved. My childhood, there was neither good nor bad, just routine. Wake up, go to bed, attend classes, play. It was all planned out, and I accepted it quietly, not knowing any other way of life. The teachers liked me because I was smart and calm. After graduation, they helped me get a small, rundown government apartment. To me, it was perfect. I dreamed of becoming a doctor and enrolled in medical school. That's where I met James. He was so different from anyone I had ever known, charming, full of energy, and from a world I could hardly imagine. When he proposed, I thought I was living a fairy tale. Now, as I lie here listening to my husband's drunken snores on our wedding night, I wonder if I've made a huge mistake. I can't help but think of all the women I saw during my medical rotations, women hurt and broken by men who promised to love them. Is that what my future holds? No, I tell myself, I won't let that happen. I've survived on my own before, and I can do it again if I have to. My babies deserve better, and so do I. As the first rays of sunlight peek through the window, I make a silent promise to myself. I'll finish my degree, become a doctor, and build a life where I'm valued and respected. If James wants to be part of that life, he'll have to prove he's worthy. And if not, I've faced tougher challenges before. I place my hand on my swollen belly, feeling the twins move. We'll be okay, I whisper. For the first time since the wedding, I actually believe it. I never thought I'd end up here, working part-time at a pharmacy just to get by. Back then, my life was simple. I was the girl with the sweet smile and bouncy curls that caught the eye of every boy. But I wasn't in a hurry to fall in love, no way. The orphanage had taught me better. I had seen too many girls lose their way, dragged down by alcohol, drugs, and bad choices. I made a promise to myself: career first, marriage later. But the heart doesn't always listen to practical plans. It was just another day at the hospital, helping a patient after surgery, when I saw him. A handsome young man with eyes as dark as midnight. James caught my attention right away. He was so polite and charming, with a wink and a compliment that made me blush. What started as a friendship quickly turned into love before I even realized what was happening. James came from money, his mother a businesswoman, his father working in city administration. At first, I felt out of place, but I didn't hide my background as an orphan or my lack of a wealthy family. James, bless him, admired my strength and independence. He told me I was amazing for fighting on my own, studying, and working hard. He said he respected that. He even admitted that sometimes he felt weighed down by his parents' constant support and worry. I remember telling him how lucky he was to have someone care for him like that. "You think being independent is easy?" I'd said. "It's scary, not having anyone to fall back on." We started dating, and before I knew it, I had fallen in love. All my old resolutions gone. James was caring and gentle. He promised we'd be together forever, and I believed him. I thought I had found my perfect happy ending, like in the romance novels I used to secretly read at the orphanage. But a few months later, everything changed. I started feeling strange, always tired, and crying for no reason. My period was all over the place. When I saw those 3 lines on the pregnancy test, it felt like the ground had disappeared beneath me. We had just started our relationship, and James hadn't even introduced me to his parents yet. And now a baby? This definitely wasn't part of our plans. We were dreaming of beach trips, not cribs and diapers. I was still in school, for heaven's sake. How were we supposed to raise a child when we barely had anything serious between us? We just had love and a new relationship we were still building. I didn't know how to tell James the first was pregnant. I kept putting it off, getting more anxious with each passing day, until I finally realized I couldn't wait any longer. With my heart in my throat, I decided it was time. I took a deep breath, my heart racing. "Honey, I need to go to the doctor tomorrow," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Would you come with me? I really need your support, please." James's face filled with worry right away, and he agreed without a second thought. He asked if I was sick, his voice full of concern. I gave him a vague answer, telling him we'd know everything by tomorrow. The next day, I led him into the ultrasound room, my palms sweaty, my stomach flipping. The news was even more shocking than we expected. I was pregnant with twins. Even the doctor looked surprised, checking my belly carefully before saying, "Congratulations, it's twins," with a smile. His cheerfulness was the complete opposite of James's reaction. On the way home, James couldn't stop pacing and talking, his words hitting me like a ton of bricks. "How could this happen?" he demanded. "I'm going to be a doctor. How did I not think to protect us? Now we're in real trouble. How can I tell my parents? They'll kill me." He kept going, saying how his tiny apartment was already too small for the 2 of us, let alone for 4. He didn't even have his own place yet, he reminded me. His father had promised him a luxury apartment as a wedding gift, but now who knew how his parents would react? I felt like I was drowning in a sea of emotions, fear, guilt, and uncertainty. Tears streamed down my face as I whispered that I didn't know what to do. I told him I was just as shocked and unprepared as he was. I still had to finish school, and now there were twins. But then, something inside me snapped. "Don't yell at me like this is all my fault," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "You were there too. I didn't make these babies on my own." My voice cracked as I finished, but I stood my ground. I voiced my biggest fear. "Are you going to leave me now?" As I stood there waiting for his answer, it felt like my whole future was hanging in the air. Would he stay with me? Or would I end up alone, just like I'd always been afraid of? In that moment, I realized that no matter what, I had to be strong for myself and for the little lives growing inside me. I never imagined I'd be in this situation, stuck between love and judgment, hope and despair. James's hug should have made me feel better, but his words felt empty. He said the babies were his too, and apologized for losing his temper. He said we needed to tell his parents and somehow get married. He promised we'd figure it out together, though he didn't really know how. I felt a bit of relief, but it didn't last long. When we met with James's parents, their reaction was as cold as a winter morning in Alaska. James tried to break the news gently, telling them we were in love and expecting twins. He begged for their understanding, admitting we were just as surprised as they were. Brenda Smith, his mother, clutched her chest and gasped like she'd been shot, while his father just frowned, staying silent. What followed was a long, humiliating questioning, like they were putting my life under a microscope. With every question, I could feel myself becoming less and less acceptable in their eyes. Not only was I pregnant with twins, but I was also an orphan with no family and no money. In their eyes, I was a terrible match for their only son. But they had no choice. They had to accept me as their son's bride. They decided to rent out my tiny apartment and have us live in their mansion. At least they reasoned there would be space for the children to play. And just like that, a new chapter of my life began. Adult family life. No more working at the pharmacy. Either my future in-laws were firmly against me working in a shop. I was thankful they at least let me finish my studies. There I was, taking my final exams with a belly as big as a watermelon. I had always dreamed of getting married before my pregnancy showed, wanting everything to be perfect. I imagined dancing with my love, trying on different wedding dresses, and picking out veils and accessories. A wedding, after all, is more than just a celebration for a woman. It's a symbol of love, a rite of passage, a memory to cherish for life. But Brenda Smith had other ideas. She delayed the wedding 4 times, each time with a new excuse. First, it was an illness, then high blood pressure, then work obligations, or the season wasn't right. It felt intentional, like Brenda was trying to delay the wedding until I was in my 3rd trimester, looking shapeless and far from beautiful. Maybe she wanted to make a fool of me in front of the guests. Brenda was a tough woman, without any sign of compassion, respect, or kindness. She controlled the entire family and their business with no one daring to question her. As I lay in bed each night, my hands resting on my growing belly, I couldn't help but wonder what I had gotten myself into. Was this the family I wanted for my children? For myself? But then I'd feel a small kick, a reminder of the little lives counting on me, and I'd gather my strength. I might not have chosen this situation, but I was determined to face it for my babies and for myself. In the Grand Smith mansion, Brenda's smile was always as bright as polished silver when others were around. But as soon as James came home from work, she would pull him into his father's study, and her true nature would come out. "Darling," she'd coo, her voice full of fake concern, "you won't believe what your fiancé did today. She ruined your silk shirt. The foolish girl washed it on the wrong setting. And she's been lounging around all day, acting like she owns the place. Where did you find her again? You've barely known each other, and she's already pregnant with twins. Are you sure they're yours? There's never been twins in our family, you know. It's genetic, after all." Brenda's words cut deeper as she continued. "Why burden yourself with this? What's so special about her? She's a simple girl, not even that smart, and she hasn't even finished school yet. She doesn't have a penny to her name. Can you imagine 3 babies crying all the time? It would drive me mad, and it will drive you mad too. You're still young, James. Your whole life is ahead of you. And now you want to tie yourself down with sleepless nights and all this responsibility? You're still just a child at heart, used to living with mommy. Are you sure you're ready for this? You don't need to worry about children who might not even be yours. Wake up while you still can." James, clearly upset, would defend himself. He asked his mother what she was suggesting, that he throw out his pregnant fiancé. What would people think? He insisted he truly loved me, even admitting he didn't want kids right now and couldn't imagine what life would be like with them, but he said we'd get used to it. What else could we do? Brenda's smile would turn even sweeter, almost sickening, as she replied, "Of course, we don't need to throw Olivia out. That would be cruel. But I have another idea." After these talks, James would come out of the study irritated and on edge. It was clear he wasn't happy about becoming a father so soon either. He felt like his life was over, that he'd be stuck at home forever. Even the wedding felt like a hollow, pointless event, just done to keep up appearances. I stand there watching James mumble something I can't even understand before the registrar. His hands are shaking as he slips the ring on my finger. This moment, the one I dreamed of since I was a little girl, feels empty, like a badly rehearsed play. After the ceremony, he disappears into the celebration, not even noticing when I quietly slip away, too tired and heartbroken to keep pretending. Is this how a man in love acts? Where is the tenderness, the warmth we used to have? It's as if our unplanned pregnancy erased every bit of affection between us. 3 weeks go by, and there's no talk of a honeymoon. James's parents are watching every penny that was gifted to us as newlyweds money I haven't even seen. We start arguing over the smallest things. He's annoyed by my tossing and turning at night, complaining that I keep him awake. Before I know it, he moves to another room. My heart breaks a little more each day. I miss him so much, craving just a little love and support, especially at night when my fears feel overwhelming. I'm scared of the birth, of needing a C-section, of something going wrong with the babies. Here I am, still a student, and soon I'll be caring for twins. I have no one to confide in, no shoulder to cry on, no family or real friends. I try to calm myself by imagining James falling in love with our babies the moment he holds them, but even that hope feels shaky. Then out of nowhere, he drops another bombshell. He's leaving for a 5-week business trip, starting tomorrow. He says he has important things to take care of, as if it's no big deal. Tears fill my eyes as I beg him, asking how he can do this. I'm already struggling, feeling unwanted by his mother and judged by his father. And now he's leaving me? What if the babies come early? I've read that it's common with twins. What am I supposed to do if I'm alone? The doctors still aren't sure if I'll need a C-section. How can he abandon me now, at such an important time? I beg him not to go, not to leave me feeling so scared, but he just gets annoyed. He tells me to stop reading silly things, insisting I still have a month to go, and I'm not alone. His parents will take me to the hospital if anything happens. He claims he's doing this for us, earning money, but his tone is like that of a spoiled child. He says he's just starting his career and needs to do this now to be successful later. As I listen to him, a cold feeling creeps over me. This isn't the man I fell in love with. This isn't the future I imagined for myself or for my children. As I place my hand on my swollen belly, feeling the twins move, I know I have to be strong for them, even if I can't be strong for myself. I may feel alone in this marriage, but I won't be alone in motherhood. These babies are my family now, and I'll do whatever it takes to give them the love and security they deserve. Lying here in this cold hospital bed, I've never felt more alone in my life. The pain in my abdomen has lessened, but the ache in my heart feels overwhelming, like it might swallow me whole. How did I end up here, fighting to keep my babies safe, with no one by my side? Just a few weeks ago, I was living in my mother-in-law's mansion, a place that felt more like a fancy prison than a home. Every minute of my day was planned, my needs and opinions completely ignored. It was like I was invisible to them, like they didn't even see me. I still get chills thinking about that night. The pain hit me like a train, my belly tightening with contractions. Panic took over as I stumbled to Brenda's room, barely able to call for help. Her annoyance was clear as she asked why I was making noise in the middle of the night. She accused me of causing problems before labor had even started. As I begged her for help, getting worse by the minute, she finally called an ambulance. But her words hurt more than the pain in my body. "Stop screaming like a child. Be a real woman," she said, as if I could control the fear and pain I was feeling. Now here I am, hooked up to IVs, fighting every hour to keep my babies safe. The doctors say I need to stay here until I give birth to avoid any more complications. I feel so desperate, trying to reach James, hoping he'll come back to support me, but his phone is always out of service. His mother won't answer my calls either. A terrible thought creeps into my mind. Did they plan this? How am I supposed to stay here alone? I don't even have anyone to bring me my things. Thankfully, I managed to save a little money from renting out my apartment, but it's barely enough for a few weeks, let alone if I need medication. As I lie here listening to the steady beep of the monitors, I can't stop thinking about the girls I knew at the orphanage. So many of them ended up in situations like this alone, scared, with no one to help them. I always thought I'd be different, that I'd find love and build my own family. Here I am, married, yet feeling more alone than ever. But as I feel a flutter in my belly, a reminder of the precious lives I'm carrying, I gather my strength. I may not have the family I dreamed of, but I will be the mother these babies deserve. I'll fight for them with everything I have. even if I have to do it alone. This isn't the life I imagined, but it's mine, and I refuse to let it break me. Days blurred together as I lay in my hospital bed, feeling lonelier than ever before. No visitors, no calls, just silence. A terrible thought started to grow in my heart like a weed, choking out any hope I had left. Had James really abandoned me? Changed his number? It seemed unreal that we hadn't been able to reach each other for days, yet here I was alone. I buried my face in my pillow, my tears soaking the thin fabric. My nerves were frayed, and I was losing hope. The other patients, bless them, tried to comfort me with shared fruit and kind words. I even made a friend, Joyce Meyer, a sweet nurse's aide who took pity on me. She'd chat with me and try to lift my spirits, sometimes bringing homemade meals, which were a blessing compared to the bland hospital food. But nothing could ease the deep ache in my soul. I was about to give birth, and my husband was nowhere to be found. In desperation, I turned to Joyce, pleading for her help. I told her how exhausted I was, how I feared something terrible had happened to James. Why has he vanished? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Where could he have gone? He wouldn't leave me here forever. We're married, aren't we? The words tasted bitter as I spoke them, voicing my deepest fears. What if something had happened? I handed Joyce a note and begged her to deliver it to his address. Please, I need to know. I think I'll go mad with these thoughts, I told her. Joyce, bless her heart, agreed to help and promised to go after her next shift. I waited anxiously, torn between hope and dread. But when Joyce returned, her news hit me like a physical blow. She told me she had seen James, alive and well, leaving the mansion with another woman. When she approached him with my note, he looked at her strangely, then at the woman in blue beside him. He told Joyce she must have the wrong address, that he didn't know anyone named Olivia. He didn't even read the note, he just tore it up and threw it away. Joyce said she could tell by his shifty eyes that he was lying. He's abandoned you, she said softly, her voice gentle, but her words cutting deep. He's decided to forget you. As Joyce's words sank in, it felt like a balloon of pain exploded inside me. Tears streamed down my face, and suddenly, I felt a rush of water between my legs. Joyce's eyes widened as she shouted that my water had broken. She rushed to get the doctor, telling me to hang in there and that she'd be right back. In that moment, as the first contraction hit, I realized this was it. I was about to become a mother alone, heartbroken, but determined to be strong for my babies. They were all I had now, and I promised myself I'd give them all the love and protection their father had refused to give us. This wasn't the beginning I had dreamed of, but it was our beginning, and I was ready to face whatever came next for my children's sake. I never thought I'd be here, cradling 3 precious newborns in my arms, feeling both overwhelmed with love and crushed by the weight of abandonment. The birth, thank goodness, was smooth and I didn't need a C-section. But as I looked down at my beautiful baby boy and girl, reality hit me hard. I couldn't even hold both babies at once. My voice broke as I whispered, I don't even have a stroller. Tears ran down my cheeks as the enormity of my situation sank in. Joyce, my angel of a nurse's aide, tried to comfort me. She told me not to worry, that everything would be okay. She even mentioned her brother, Paul, who might bring flowers and balloons. You're not alone, she assured me, and I clung to those words like a lifeline. She told me about Paul, kind and compassionate, with a limp from saving a child from under a truck. Joyce promised to contact City Hall to look into bigger apartments or financial aid. She and her brother would help me, she said. Her words were meant to be comforting, but they only reminded me how truly alone I was. When the day of discharge came, my hospital roommates helped me get ready. It felt strange putting on makeup when my world had fallen apart. City Hall officials even arrived to take pictures for their records. Paul, Joyce's brother, was waiting downstairs. He was tall and friendly, despite his noticeable limp. He handed me flowers and gave me a hug, whispering words of encouragement. Just then, a local TV crew arrived, looking for heartwarming stories about new mothers. They focused on me and the twins, asking about my first impressions and expectations. I forced a smile, trying to look composed for the cameras. After the whirlwind interview, Joyce and Paul helped me into a taxi. When I finally entered my tiny apartment, I let out a deep sigh, followed by more tears. How was I supposed to manage 3 babies alone, without even a crib or a stroller? But beneath the fear and uncertainty, there was a fire burning inside me. I was angry at James. I felt discarded, like I wasn't good enough. But in that moment, I made a vow to myself and my babies. We would survive. We would thrive. And we would prove that we didn't need a man like James or his family. I won't ask them for a single penny. We'll make it on our own, no matter what. As I look at my sleeping twins, I feel a strength I never knew I had. We may be starting with nothing, but we have each other, and that's everything. In the luxurious Smith family mansion, excitement filled the air. A local news story had just featured a heartwarming piece about a brave mother who had given birth to twins. The whole family watched as Olivia was seen on TV being greeted by a man with a noticeable limp. The clip was short, focusing mostly on Olivia and her babies. Brenda Smith's sharp voice cut through the room. She exclaimed that this proved what she had suspected all along, that the babies weren't James's. She declared that the real father had finally shown up. James, torn between his love for Olivia and his mother's influence, struggled to understand what was happening. He suggested that maybe Olivia had just asked someone for help. He admitted they had made a mistake by abandoning her and the children, his voice full of regret as he confessed he still loved Olivia. He reminded his mother that they were, after all, still married. Brenda's anger was clear as she scolded her son for being naive. She refused to believe that the twins could be James's, insisting that strangers' children wouldn't be welcome in her home. With a cruel smile, she predicted that Olivia wouldn't last long on her own. She mentioned that she had heard Olivia was seeking government help, but she was confident that her husband's connections in city administration would block Olivia from getting public housing. Brenda sneered, saying Olivia would soon come crawling back with no way to support herself. She almost seemed happy as she declared that Olivia's true colors as a deceitful orphan had finally come to light. James, as always, was swayed by his mother's strong personality. Years of strict parenting had left him unable to form his own opinions or stand up to her. Despite his love for Olivia and his deep regret, he lacked the courage to go against his mother. He continued to follow her cruel plans, secretly hoping that Olivia would return and they could make things right. The scene shifts to one of Brenda's important business presentations. She was beginning her speech in front of a group of top executives. The large screen behind her was ready to display her carefully prepared slides. However, due to a technical glitch, the screen started showing a rerun of the local news instead. Right at that moment, the report about Olivia and her twins appeared on the screen, showing Paul helping her. The entire audience was shocked. Many people in the room had attended James's wedding and recognized Olivia. They were confused. Why wasn't James with her? Who was this man? And most importantly, what did this have to do with the business presentation? Realizing her mistake, Brenda quickly switched the screen back to her slides, apologized, and continued her talk. But by then, everyone in the room was whispering and discussing the unexpected video they had just seen. One businessman, Larry King, could barely stay focused until the end. He was shocked because he recognized the man in the video. Paul was the same person who had saved his 10-year-old son from a traffic accident a year ago. At the time, Larry had been away on a long business trip and wasn't there when the accident happened. When he got back, he studied the intersection footage and remembered the face of the man who had saved his son. But the man's identity remained a mystery because he had left while the paramedics were treating the boy, even refusing help for his own injuries. Larry had always wanted to thank him in person, and now he had finally seen him again. Wasting no time, Larry used his connections to find out more. He discovered that Brenda's son had abandoned his wife and children, not even being there when Olivia was discharged from the hospital. Larry found out where Olivia was living and decided to visit her. Knowing there were young children, he bought diapers and toys, wanting to bring something helpful. When he arrived at Olivia's door, he was greeted by a pale, tired-looking young woman. She seemed surprised to see him, but despite being strangers, Olivia quickly began to talk. I opened the door, my heart skipping a beat when I saw a face I didn't recognize. For a second, I was thrown back to the day James left, feeling that same mix of hope and dread. But this wasn't my husband, it was someone else. Suddenly, I became aware of how messy I must look. "I'm sorry," I blurted out, my words rushing. "I need to keep this quick." As if on cue, the twins started fussing in the background, their cries a reminder of how overwhelming everything felt. "The babies need feeding," I added, feeling a bit embarrassed. "I haven't managed to finish anything today." Then, I caught the smell of burning food and added, "And I think my stew is about to burn. I need to check on it." The man, who introduced himself as Larry, handed me some bags and asked about Paul, the man who had helped me at the hospital. As he spoke, I felt a flood of emotions: gratitude for Paul's kindness, shame about my current situation, and a small flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, things could get better. "Thank you," I said, my voice thick with emotion as I accepted the gifts. Paul is Joyce's brother, the nurse's aide. We became friends at the hospital. I couldn't help but add, he's a good man, kind. He helped me bring the babies home. I couldn't have managed alone. Bitterness crept into my voice as I continued. My shameless husband abandoned us, but God will judge him, and his mother will survive without them. As I scribbled down Joyce's contact information, I felt a lump in my throat. "They're wonderful people," I said, blinking back tears. "They're helping me as much as they can. I can't even take the children for a walk. I don't have a stroller." Standing there in my small apartment, surrounded by the chaos of new motherhood and abandonment, I suddenly felt very small and very alone. But as I looked at this kind stranger, I felt a spark of something I hadn't felt in a long time: hope. Maybe, just maybe, there were still good people in the world, people who cared about a struggling young mother and her twins. For the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to believe that we might just make it after all. Olivia handed Paul's contact information to Larry, who wasted no time in reaching out to set up a meeting. Larry explained to Paul how he had recognized him from the news report and that Olivia had provided his contact details. Paul shared his story: how, after injuring his leg in an accident, he had struggled to find good work. But he and his sister, Joyce, had been doing their best to help Olivia. Larry listened carefully, impressed by Paul's kindness and courage despite his own difficulties. Paul, concerned for a young woman he barely knew, had gone out of his way to help. Larry spoke with determination, his voice firm but kind. He offered Paul a job at his company, starting as an assistant manager with a good salary and reasonable hours. He then added that he would take care of the stroller situation for Olivia, noting that it wasn't much for him, and he was happy to help the struggling mother. Paul's joy was clear as he eagerly accepted the job offer. He promised to work hard and not disappoint Larry, adding that his sister would be overjoyed, as she had always worried about him. I never imagined my life could change so quickly. One moment, I was drowning in despair, and the next, a lifeline appeared in the form of Paul and Larry. Paul started working at Larry's company and quickly proved himself to be an exceptional employee, rising to the role of general manager in no time. His career took off like a rocket, and I couldn't help but feel proud and amazed. Larry, true to his word, also came through for the twins. He sent a beautiful stroller, so elegant it brought tears to my eyes. It was something I could never have afforded on my own, a symbol of the kindness that still exists in the world. Now, our walks are a joy, with the babies sleeping peacefully in the fresh air, their appetites getting better each day. As for Paul and me, we've grown incredibly close. He's become like an unofficial member of our little family, always helping with everything and bringing a sense of comfort and peace I thought I'd never feel again. He's truly a kindred spirit, and sometimes I wonder if this is what real love feels like. The pain of James's betrayal has started to fade, like an old photo losing its color. I realize now that we were never right for each other. We were just three different people, and what we had was probably more passion than love. I don't regret the divorce anymore. Life with his unpleasant mother would have never made me happy. With Paul and Joyce's help, I even managed to get a 4-bedroom apartment from the city. No more cramming our growing family into that tiny space. Time flew by, and before I knew it, the twins were starting daycare, and I was finally able to go back to university. I've even begun my internship on the same ward where I gave birth. Talk about coming full circle. It wasn't easy at first, juggling everything, but I found a way to manage, finding a rhythm in the chaos. Through it all, Paul has been there, my faithful support, bringing peace and joy to my heart. The way the children call him, Papa, reaching out their little hands, and how he melts with love, it fills me with happiness and hope for our future. As I watch my little family, I can't help but think how life works in mysterious ways. From the darkest moments of despair, I've found a happiness I never thought was possible. It's not the life I had planned, but it's filled with love, laughter, and second chances. And you know what? I wouldn't have it any other way. Meanwhile, in the once grand Smith household, things had taken a bad turn. Brenda Smith, my former mother-in-law, had lost her job, and her husband had suffered major financial losses, pushing their family business to the edge of bankruptcy. James, unable to cope, turned to alcohol, constantly blaming his mother for ruining his life and forcing him into terrible decisions. He could never forget the kind and loving Olivia, and his guilt tormented him day and night. He even tried to reconcile, calling me over and over, but I either ignored him or hung up just as he had once done to me. James started gambling, wasting what little money was left of his parents' fortune. He hired women for company, but none of them could give him even a fraction of the warmth I once had. Brenda Smith, watching her son spiral out of control, became desperate, realizing too late that all of this was her fault. Her hatred for me grew even stronger. In a moment of desperation, she turned to James with a chilling suggestion. She asked if he would forgive her if she took his children away from that wicked woman, suggesting they could live with him, their father. James eagerly responded that he would give anything for that. I never thought I'd end up in a courtroom, fighting for the right to live peacefully with my children. The irony of Brenda's lawsuit isn't lost on me. They were the ones who insisted these weren't their grandchildren, and now they want custody. I stand before the judge, keeping my voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside me. James is not the father. I declare, the words tasting bitter. These are not his children. Please, just let us live in peace. Brenda's shrill voice cuts through the room, accusing me of lying and keeping the children from their father out of spite. She threatens genetic testing, her eyes wild with desperation. But I feel a surge of strength as I face her. You have no right, I say, my voice low but firm. Not without my permission, which I will never give. Memories of their abandonment flood back, and I can't help but let some of the bitterness seep into my words. You left me in the hospital. You ignored me. I was nothing but a problem to you. Now, be happy that I'm not in your lives. Why can't you just let us live in peace? Thanks to the clever work of the lawyer Paul hired, the court sides with me. As James and Brenda prepare to leave, I feel a moment of triumph, quickly followed by exhaustion. But it's not over yet. James grabs my arm, and his touch sends a shiver of disgust through me. He begs for forgiveness, saying he still loves me and can't forget me. I shake off his grip, looking at him with eyes that have seen too much. You may not be able to forget me, I say coldly, but I never want to remember you again. Do you understand? The words pour out, years of hurt and anger finally finding their release. What kind of husband and father are you? Just your mommy's little boy, always doing what she says. And then, unexpectedly, I feel a wave of gratitude. You know what, James? I should thank you. If you hadn't abandoned me so cruelly, I might never have met the most important man in my life. I might never have found true happiness. I straighten my shoulders, feeling taller and stronger than I have in years. I'm not saying goodbye, I tell him. I'm saying farewell forever. With that, I walk away, my heels clicking confidently on the floor. My head held high, I step into the sunlight, feeling like I can finally breathe again. The future stretches out before me, bright and full of promise, and for the first time in a long time, I feel free. I'm excited to see what the future holds. After the trial, James completely lost control. He started gambling and drinking a lot, and grew to hate his mother deeply. Soon, He found himself owing a huge amount of money to loan sharks, mortgaging everything he had until it was all gone, swallowed by his debts. It was like he was digging his own grave. Brenda Smith looked like she had aged 17 years overnight. Her back was hunched, and her face was full of lines from anger and bitterness. In her desperation, she made a terrible decision. She whispered to the criminals that James had real children with Olivia, suggesting that kidnapping those children could be a way to pay off the debt. Brenda's obsession with punishing Olivia had taken over her mind, and she had clearly lost all sense of right and wrong. I never thought I'd feel such fear, the kind that takes over everything. One moment, I was watching my kids play in the park, their laughter like a balm to my soul after a long day at work. The next, they were gone, taken by men in hoodies and caps. I can still hear the screech of tires as the car sped away, my babies inside. My legs gave out as I tried to run after them, screaming for help until my throat felt raw. The world became a blur of faces and sirens. At the hospital, I was barely aware of what was happening, the sedatives dulling the edges of my terror. Paul's face appeared, and I clung to him like a lifeline. "Find them," I begged, my voice a broken whisper. "I can't live without them. What if they're hurt or worse?" The fear was too much to bear, each thought like a knife to my heart. Paul held me tight, promising that the police were searching and that we'd find them. But how could he be so sure? When the detective arrived, I forced myself to focus, to remember every detail. My hands shook as I tried to describe the kidnappers and the car. By some miracle, I remembered the license plate, a small ray of hope in this nightmare. As the search went on, I felt torn apart. Part of me wanted to collapse, to give in to the crushing fear and despair. But another part, the mother in me, refused to give up. I turned to Paul, my voice steadier than I felt. "Please, let's go that way," I said. "My heart will find my babies. I'm not lying." He hesitated, and I could see the doubt in his eyes. My heart was pounding in my chest, each beat reminding me that my children were out there, waiting for me to find them. Paul tried to reason with me, saying I was too weak to go looking. But he didn't understand. I looked at him, my gaze burning with the love and desperation only a mother can feel. "If you won't take me," I said, my voice low and determined, "then I'll leave this hospital and find my babies on my own. I'll tear apart anyone who stands in my way. I'll dig up the earth with my bare hands if I have to. I have to." I can see the struggle in Paul's eyes, but he gives in, and we head to the search site. We drive through nearby villages showing pictures of the twins, but no one has seen them. As darkness falls, Paul tries to convince me to go back, but I'm filled with a fierce determination. "No," I say, my voice breaking. "I'm not going back until we find them. Please understand, my heart is about to stop. I can't eat or sleep anyway. Let's just ask a few more people." Just as we're about to leave the last village, I spot a forest ranger's cabin. My heart leaps into my throat as I run toward the window, desperate for any help. The bearded ranger listens to my panic story and tells us about a hideout in the swamp where the kidnappers might be. We set off with him, hope and fear battling inside me. At the hideout, we see a faint light in a small window. Suddenly, there's a scuffle and then a gunshot. The ranger quickly subdues a man, and we find my terrified children inside. The man claims he saved the children from criminals and brought them to the cabin for protection. As we bring the children home, relief washes over me like a tidal wave. Holding them in my arms again, joy and gratitude overwhelm me. Later, the police reveal that the man in the cabin wasn't the kidnapper, but their rescuer. He leads the authorities to where the real criminals were hiding, and evidence is found that exposes Brenda Smith's evil plan. She is sent to a mental institution, and James's life spirals even further with his father dying of a heart attack and their family business collapsing. Looking at my children, safe in their beds, I realize this nightmare has finally ended, though the fear still lingers, a reminder of how quickly everything can change. I promise myself to hold them closer, love them more fiercely, and never take a moment for granted again. I never thought I'd find peace after everything we've been through, but here we are, sitting down to dinner with Scott, the man who saved our children. As I watch Paul thank him, calling him a true hero, a warmth spreads through my chest. Scott humbly responds, saying I'm the real heroine for never giving up, and his words bring tears to my eyes. I smile softly and say, we just did what any parent would do, but deep down I know it was more than that. As Scott shares his tragic past, I see my own pain reflected in his eyes. When Paul offers him a job as the caretaker of our property, I feel a surge of pride and love for this man who has become my rock. I join in, telling Scott that it's our turn to do something for him, and I mean every word. The thought of Scott spending time with our children, teaching them to fish and sharing his stories, fills me with a sense of wholeness I never thought I'd feel again. As we sit around the table, sharing stories and laughing, I realize we've found more than just the man who saved our children. We've gained a new member of our family. Watching Scott settle into his role as caretaker and seeing our relationships grow, I'm reminded of how life can surprise you. Every moment we spend together feels like a gift, and each shared experience is a treasure. On weekends, while the men fish and I watch the kids catch butterflies or enjoy the sun, I look at my little ones with a love so deep it takes my breath away. I think back to how scared I was of having twins, worrying that I'd be overwhelmed. That first year was tough, but now I have 3 little miracles who love me, who call me mommy, with so much affection. It's fun, it's wonderful, and it's the best reward I could have ever imagined. As I sit here surrounded by the family I've built not just through blood, but by choice, I realize that sometimes the most beautiful things in life come from the darkest moments. We didn't just survive, we thrived. And that, my friends, is the greatest story of all. If you enjoyed this story, I'd be grateful if you could give it a like and subscribe to the channel.
My stepfather taught me everything he knew about the business. From a young age, I soaked up every bit of knowledge he shared, always eager to prove myself. When he retired, I was certain that he would name me the CEO of his company. After all, I had dedicated years to learning the ins and outs of the business. But when the time came, he didn't choose me. Instead, he made my brother, who spends most of his time partying and traveling with his friends, the CEO. My brother knows nothing about running a business, and this decision left me completely blindsided. To make matters worse, my family has turned their backs on me. All because I dared to follow my dream of becoming a CEO. They now see me as the black sheep, accusing me of sabotaging my stepfather's company. My grandparents, on my father's side, even went as far as removing me from their will. The only way they'll consider welcoming me back into the family is if I stop trying to take clients away from my stepbrother. But things weren't always this way. Just a year ago, I believed that I would inherit my stepfather's talent management company. I had worked so hard my entire life, hoping to make him proud and continue his legacy. However, it seems that in the end, blood truly is thicker than water. I'm a 30-year-old man who has been working for my stepfather since I was 18. My father passed away when I was very young, and later, my mother remarried a widower who had a son just 3 years younger than me. We became a blended family, and despite the changes, I never lost contact with my father's side of the family. The way my stepbrother Scott and I were raised, no one would have guessed we weren't blood relatives. My stepdad treated us both like his own sons, though we were very different in our interests and personalities. While my stepbrother spent his school holidays on trips, partying with his friends, I spent mine begging my stepfather to let me work at the company. He eventually gave in, allowing me to do small tasks like answering phones, bringing coffee, and running errands while I was still in high school. My mom was incredibly proud of me for taking an interest in the business and working so hard. During college, I continued to work for my stepfather part-time, in the field I was studying. I always turned to him for advice whenever I faced challenges, and he was there to help me every step of the way. The money I earned usually went into savings, as my mom and stepfather were already covering my tuition. I might sound entitled for thinking I deserved to run the company, but in many ways, my stepfather had been preparing me for that role from the start. Unlike me, my stepbrother never showed any interest in the business. But despite all my efforts and dedication, it was he who ended up in the position I worked so hard for. I began working for my stepfather while I was still in college. He took me under his wing, mentoring me throughout the years, and I eventually became one of his most valued interns. When I finished my degree, I had a variety of job offers from different companies, all eager to hire me. But despite these tempting offers, I chose to stay with the family business. I couldn't bring myself to leave behind everything I had worked for and the people I cared about for a more comfortable job elsewhere. In hindsight, I should have taken the best offer and walked away because what I ended up doing was setting myself up for disappointment. I had accumulated years of experience in the business, and my job prospects were excellent. My stepfather made me an offer with benefits and promised me that I had a bright future at the agency. As I continued to work there, I was entrusted with larger and more significant projects. At first, my fellow employees didn't take me seriously, but through sheer hard work, I earned their respect and trust. Everyone in the company knew that I was his son and his right-hand man. The business became my entire life. I had little time for anything else. Over the past 5 years, I poured my heart and soul into the company. I started from the bottom, and my stepfather was always fair, ensuring that I genuinely earned every promotion I received. As my position within the company grew, he began to seek my advice on business matters. Before long, I knew all of the company's trade secrets, every single client, and even our competitors. I was a key player in closing deals, and I quickly became one of the top managers in just 5 years. Then, my stepfather announced his retirement, which meant that the position of CEO would soon be available. Everyone, including my mother, believed that I would be the one to take on this role, given the success I had brought to the company. I was ready for the opportunity. My stepfather had even hinted that I was moving up in the company for quite some time. But when the moment came, he shocked everyone by naming my stepbrother as the new CEO candidate. I felt utterly betrayed, as did many others who had witnessed the hard work I had put in. My stepfather claimed that my stepbrother had the potential to lead the company forward and mentioned that he had been mentoring him for the past 7 months. The reality, however, was that my stepbrother had been working overseas for different companies, none of which were in the same field as ours. Even if he had been taught everything there was to know about our business in that short time, he was still far from qualified to take on the role. I pulled my stepfather aside one day and asked him directly why he had chosen Scott over me for the CEO position. I had to know the reason behind his decision, especially after all the hard work I had put into the company. He looked at me and said that while I was a good employee, I still had a lot to learn before I could become a leader. His words stung, so I asked him if his decision had anything to do with the fact that Scott was his biological son, and I wasn't. That question seemed to set him off. He got angry and started questioning whether he had ever treated me like I wasn't his son. He essentially told me to grow up and stop acting like he owed me anything. The conversation left me feeling empty, like I had been wronged in a major way. Even some of the other employees believed that my stepfather had made the wrong choice. If I were just another employee who had worked at the company for years, I might have accepted it, but it felt completely unfair that the rest of us had to start from the bottom while Scott was handed everything on a silver or rather, gold platter. I couldn't wrap my head around it. I had done everything right. I brought in the best clients, sacrificed my social life, and even gave up holidays just to be mentored by him. I felt like he had misled me, making me believe that I was being groomed for something greater. I had taken every compliment to heart, believing that I had a bright future ahead in the company. But in my mind, that future was supposed to be at the top, not working under someone with zero experience. As the reality of the situation sank in, I saw things for what they truly were. He had lied to me, creating the perfect employee who would never leave the company. For a man who prided himself on his ethics, it became clear to me that he had none. He had practiced blatant nepotism, appointing my stepbrother as CEO the moment the opportunity arose. Right after the news broke, I called my mom to tell her what had happened. I was hurt and needed her support. But instead of the empathy I was hoping for, she told me that it wasn't the end of the world and that other opportunities would come my way. She even asked me to support Scott and help ensure his transition into the company was smooth. Her response left me with a sinking feeling that she had known all along about the plan to leave me out in the cold. In that moment, I wanted to quit on the spot. I was bitter and felt robbed of what I believed was rightfully mine. But I knew I had to be smart about it. I wanted my departure to leave a mark, to make them feel the loss. So I stayed. I watched as my stepbrother stumbled through his new role, making a mess of the company. I bided my time, waiting for the right moment to make my exit, one that would hurt them the way they had hurt me. I tried to give my stepbrother advice whenever I saw him heading in the wrong direction, but he always reminded me that I was in a lower position. Word spread quickly among the employees, and most of them were already unhappy with how he was treating them. During this time, I was quietly making plans to start my own company, even as I began to steal clients right from under their noses. My stepfather was hardly ever in the office, and my stepbrother struggled with even the simplest tasks. They didn't notice how bad things were because I was constantly picking up the slack for him. Despite my anger, that company meant a lot to me, which is why I wanted it all. My goal was for them to eventually beg me to buy the company from them, but I knew that could only happen if I was on the right track. So, I continued to put in my hours at the office while spending even more time working on the paperwork to start my own company. I had a friend in the HT department of my brother's company, and I asked him to find a loophole that would allow me to quit without serving a notice period. It turned out that my contract was coming up for renewal soon, so all I had to do was refuse to renew it. After months of careful planning, I secured an investor, and my plan to start my own company was set in motion. I knew the clients inside and out, and when I left, they followed me because they trusted my expertise. They had seen how well I handled things and didn't trust my brother, who was already making a mess of everything. Not to boast, but I was seen as something of a prodigy in the industry, while my stepbrother was just starting to fumble right out of the gate. The day I handed in my resignation, my contract had just expired, and coincidentally, my stepfather was in the office to check on the company. They were both stunned when I handed in my resignation. They immediately tried to make me a counteroffer, hoping to keep me from leaving. My stepfather even went so far as to offer me the position of co-CEO alongside his son, but I refused. He had the chance to make me CEO long ago, but he chose not to. Now, he was offering it to me just to keep me from leaving. I told him that he had made a huge mistake by choosing his son to inherit the business instead of me. I might not have been his biological son, but when it came to business, I was more of a son to him than my stepbrother ever was. Yet, deep down, I should have seen it coming. The signs were there from the beginning, even if they were subtle at first. There was always a distinction between me and Scott, little things that hinted at a difference in how we were treated. While I worked tirelessly, often putting in 98-hour weeks, my stepbrother was given an allowance and bounced from one job to another, only to fail and eventually be handed the CEO position. Even my mom and grandparents tried to convince me that staying in the family business was the best choice for me. But I told them it wasn't worth the mistreatment and disrespect I felt from being led on by my stepfather. I couldn't understand why my mom and granddad kept pretending that we were this picture-perfect family when, in reality, we weren't all blood-related. My mom had chosen my stepdad and my stepbrother over me, and they all assumed I would fail if I left. My stepfather even told me that I was no longer his son and that I would never make it without his connections. He accused me of the worst kind of betrayal for deciding to start my own company. Hearing those words hurt deeply, but I had felt the tension building for a long time, ever since he appointed Scott as CEO. My whole family decided to cut ties with me. Thankfully, I was already living on my own, so at least I didn't have to worry about moving out. But I knew I had to prove to them and to myself that I could succeed on my own. I started my business small, with just me and an assistant whom I paid with most of my profits. But my years of experience in the industry paid off, and I slowly began to expand my business. There were moments when I thought I might fail, times when I felt completely overwhelmed. I had no one to turn to for support or advice. Everyone I knew was connected to my stepfather. Scott even offered to take me back into the company multiple times, but I knew he just wanted me to help save the sinking ship. There was no way I could return after my stepfather had disowned me. Gradually, I gained more clients, and some of their clients left Scott's company to sign contracts with me. One day, I was struggling to pay the electricity bill at my office, and the next, I was receiving contract offers from all directions. My hard work was finally starting to pay off, and I knew I was on the right path. After all those years of hard work and preparation, I was finally doing what I had trained for, becoming a true leader. My company grew rapidly, expanding from a small office to an entire building in just a few months. The The business media took notice, covering my incredible growth, and I was even named one of the top entrepreneurs of the year. As my company continued to expand, I hired more employees, and some of my former colleagues returned, seeking jobs with me. Meanwhile, it became clear that my stepbrother was running our family's company into the ground. Employees were going unpaid, yet he was overworking them while carelessly spending company funds. He struggled to grasp even the basics of running the business. His clients were neglected, and he employed poor business strategies that only made things worse. I wasn't sure if my stepfather was trying to help him, but if he was, it wasn't making any difference. I was living on my own by this time, having cut off communication with my family. My stepfather was furious with me for leaving and starting my own company, blaming me for knowing my worth and daring to compete in the same industry. Despite being retired, he still held significant influence in the industry and tried to sabotage me by spreading negative rumors. But I decided to ignore the drama and focus all my energy on my company. By the end of the year, my hard work paid off, and I received a small award for the upcoming Businessman of the Year. My company was now generating millions in revenue, all thanks to the risks I had taken. It was a proud moment, knowing that I had built something successful on my own terms. Recently, my grandparents from my father's side reached out to me. They live out of town and weren't fully aware of the situation. It seemed that my stepfather had given them his version of events, likely skewed to make himself feel better. When we met, they asked why I was ruining the family company instead of helping it. I explained the situation with the CEO position and how things had unfolded. But they dismissed my concerns, saying I was just being petty. They then gave me an ultimatum, as if I owed them an answer. They told me that if I let go of my business and returned to work for my stepbrother's company, they wouldn't disown me as well. I stood my ground and told them I would never give up being my own boss or stop pursuing my clients, even if it meant further estranging myself from the family. I knew I had made the right choice, and I wasn't going to let anyone take that away from me. I swore that I would make them regret the way they treated me, and I could already sense their rejection. When I refused to cooperate with their demands, they informed me that I was being removed from their will. Their estate is worth millions, and inheriting that money would have set me up for life. But I knew that no amount of money was worth sacrificing my own happiness. I told them they could keep their money because I didn't need it. If my business continued on the path it was on, I would keep swimming in cash. Even if I were only making a modest income, I would rather earn it through my own hard work than rely on their inheritance. I do what I do because I love it, and my passion for the business is what drives me every day. The money is just a bonus. Since that conversation, I've noticed that they, too, have joined the rest of the family in cutting me off. They've blocked me, but I don't care what they think or say about me. I am independent and successful because of my own sacrifices. Nothing was handed to me. I had to prove myself every step of the way, and I will continue to do so. In my opinion, starting my own company was the right decision, and the fact that my stepbrother's company is now at risk of failing is not my fault. They all made their choices, and now they have to live with the consequences. I know that my success bothers them, and I'm happy about that because it's the best kind of revenge. I've moved on with my life, and this is the last time I will ever talk or think about them. As for the story, I completely agree with the original poster, OP. OP deserved to be the CEO, and I don't blame him at all for the path he chose. He started his own business, and now his father and stepbrother are upset, but they brought this on themselves. What do you think? Was OP right to go his own way, or should he have stayed with his family and waited for the CEO position after his brother inevitably failed? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Story 2. Over the weekend, a 25-year-old woman, went to a dinner with some of my dad's relatives. We don't see these relatives very often, so it was one of those rare family gatherings. My dad has never gotten along well with his brother, my uncle, and honestly, I haven't either. My uncle is rude, talks down to people, and we just don't agree on many things. Usually, I try to keep my distance and ignore him when I can. But at this dinner, my uncle decided to ask me about the car I drove up in and about my new job. I started working about a year ago after graduating from college, and I've been working hard to build my career. I'm a software engineer, and I'm proud of the work I do. It's a field that requires a lot of skill and dedication, and I've put in the time and effort to be successful. With the money I've earned, I recently bought my dream car, something I've always wanted. So, when my uncle, in his usual condescending tone, asked me, "Hey, how much are they paying you anyway?" I knew he wasn't asking out of genuine curiosity. It was more like he was setting me up to make me feel bad. I didn't want to play along with whatever game he was trying to start, so instead of giving a vague answer like, "Oh, enough," I decided to be straightforward. I told him exactly how much I make. Apparently, that wasn't the answer he was expecting. He started going off on a rant about how number 25-year-old should be making that kind of money and how stupid my company must be for paying me that much. I was shocked by how upset he got, but I didn't back down. I told him that I deserve every penny I make because I work hard, and not just anyone can do what I do. This response seemed to really set him off. After dinner, I received a text from my cousin saying that I had been really rude at dinner and that I had insulted my uncle's intelligence. My dad, who doesn't like his brother anyway, took my side and supported me. He knows how hard I've worked, and he understood why I stood up for myself. However, my sister agreed with my cousin. She told me that I shouldn't have mentioned how much money I make or talk to our uncle that way because it's considered impolite. Now, I'm left wondering if I was in the wrong. I didn't think I did anything wrong by simply answering a question and defending myself when I was insulted. But the reaction from my cousin and sister has made me second-guess my actions. Am I the one at fault here? Honestly, I don't think I'm the bad guy in this situation. There was one comment I read online that really stuck with me, "Not the a-hole." He asked a question, you answered. He insulted you, and you defended yourself. Don't dish it out if you can't take it. That's exactly how I feel. My uncle started this whole thing by asking about my salary in a way that wasn't respectful. I just responded honestly, and when he insulted me, I stood up for myself. So, what do you all think? Did I go too far by telling my uncle how much I make and defending myself when he got upset? Or was I right to stand my ground? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment and appreciate all your opinions. That's all the stories I have for you today. If you're new to the channel, make sure to smash that subscribe button. Revenge Online will see you tomorrow with more stories. And remember, it's cool to be kind. See you guys in the next video.
I never asked to be born, and my parents never really wanted me either. My mom says she was young and foolish, madly in love with a guy who couldn't stay loyal. Before long, she found out she was pregnant. That baby was me, Rachel, the mistake. Mom wanted to get rid of me, but both sets of grandparents found out and stopped her. Back then, people didn't raise kids alone, so my parents got married, and I came along 11 months later, kicking and screaming. Dad never let me forget how I ruined his life. "There goes my youth," he'd say every time he looked at me. To him, I wasn't a daughter. I was a burden, something holding him back from the life he thought he deserved. For 12 years, it was just the four of us in that tiny house. I tiptoed around trying not to make Dad mad, while Mom cooked and cleaned like her life depended on it. Dad would come home from work with a frown that only got worse when he saw me. Then my little sister Olivia was born, the miracle child, the one they actually wanted. After that, I was pushed even more into the background. "Rachel, watch your sister. Rachel, be quiet, Olivia's sleeping. Rachel, why can't you be more like Olivia?" It was always about Olivia. She got new clothes, while I wore hand-me-downs. She got praised, and I got scolded. She got love, and I learned to live with disappointment. By the time I was 10, I was doing most of the housework, cleaning toilets, mopping floors, dusting shelves. You name it, I did it. Not that anyone thanked me. It was just expected. But there was one thing I didn't mind doing: cooking. Something about mixing ingredients and creating flavors felt like magic. I remember the first time I made my special lasagna for a family gathering. Aunt Kelly took a bite, and her eyes lit up. "Cheryl, this is incredible. When did you become such a great cook?" Mom just smiled and took the compliment, soaking up the praise. I stood in the corner, invisible as always. "Actually, I made it," I said, trying to speak up. They laughed like I had told a joke. "Rachel likes to help in the kitchen sometimes," Mom quickly added, still soaking in the compliments. "Isn't that right, dear?" I closed my mouth, knowing it didn't matter. No one ever believed me anyway. As I grew up, the kitchen became my escape. While Olivia got all the attention and gifts, I found comfort in cooking. By the time I reached high school, I could make a great pot roast, one even Dad couldn't complain about. Not bad, he'd grunt, stuffing his face. Coming from him, that was high praise. But cooking wasn't just about feeding my family. I had bigger dreams. Every night, I'd imagine my own restaurant, full of happy customers enjoying my dishes. One night at dinner, I couldn't hold it in any longer. "I want to open a restaurant someday," I blurted out. The silence that followed was overwhelming. Then Olivia snickered. "You? A restaurant?" Mom looked worried, like I had just said I wanted to be an astronaut. Dad didn't even bother looking up from his plate. "Restaurants fail all the time. You'd be broke in a month," he said. "But I'm good at cooking. Everyone likes my food," I protested. "Everyone likes free food," Dad scoffed. "That doesn't mean they'd pay for it." Olivia chimed in with her sickly sweet voice. "Maybe you could work at McDonald's, Rachel. I hear they're always hiring." When it was time for college, I had my heart set on the best culinary school I could find. To my surprise, Dad agreed to pay for it. "This is your inheritance," he said gruffly. "Don't expect anything else. The house, the savings, that's all going to Olivia." I should have felt hurt, but I was too excited about culinary school to care. This was my chance to prove myself, to learn from real chefs and get better at what I loved. College was a whirlwind of chopping, sautéing, and baking. For the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged. My classmates appreciated my cooking, and my instructors praised my creativity. But reality hit hard after graduation. With no money for my own place, I had to move back home. The difference between my exciting college life and my family's coldness was huge. "So, you're a chef now?" Olivia smirked over dinner. "Does that mean you'll be doing all the cooking from now on?" Before I could answer, Mom jumped in. "That's a great idea. Rachel can cook, and you can focus on your studies, dear." Just like that, I was back to being the family maid, but this time with a culinary degree collecting dust on my shelf. I managed to get a job as an assistant chef at a local restaurant. The pay wasn't great, but it was a start. Every night, I came home completely exhausted, only to face piles of dishes and laundry. "This is your rent," Mom would say, handing me a list of chores. "You're not a kid anymore. You need to help out." But I didn't let it get to me. Every free moment I was planning, dreaming, and hoping. I knew that one day I'd have my own restaurant, and when that day came, I'd show them all what I could really do. 3 long years passed, each day feeling the same. I cooked, I cleaned, I worked hard at the restaurant, and I watched as Olivia got everything I had always wanted. The day Olivia started high school, Dad came home with a huge grin on his face. "Olivia, honey, come see what I got you," he called out. We all went outside, and sitting in the driveway, like a shiny slap in the face, was a brand new car. "A car? But I don't even know how to drive yet," Olivia said, eyes wide with surprise. Dad laughed and tossed her the keys. "You will soon enough. My girl deserves the best from the start." I bit my tongue so hard I could taste blood. When I turned 17, I got a second-hand bike, and that was only because I needed it to get to my part-time job. And it didn't stop there. Every week, there was something new for Olivia. The latest iPhone, a MacBook Pro, designer clothes. They even renovated her bedroom, turning it into something that looked like a luxury hotel room. Meanwhile, I was still in my old room, with the same faded wallpaper and the same squeaky bed I'd had since I was 12. At least the spiders kept me company, right? I started thinking about moving out. Maybe I could find a roommate and share the rent on a tiny apartment. Anything would be better than this constant reminder of how little I mattered. But then Christmas came around. I had been saving up, determined to get everyone nice gifts for once, to show them I wasn't the failure they thought I was. I ended up buying lottery tickets for everyone, not the cheap scratch-offs, but tickets for the big jackpot. Christmas morning came, and I handed out the envelopes, trying not to look too eager. Mom opened hers first, and her face dropped. "Oh, lottery tickets," she said. Dad snorted. "What is this, a gas station gift?" Olivia didn't even bother opening hers. She just rolled her eyes. Gee, thanks, Rachel. Really thoughtful. Mom tried to sound nice, but her voice was dripping with fake sweetness. I guess since Rachel didn't really get us anything, she won't be expecting any gifts either. That seems fair, doesn't it? Mom said, her voice cold. I felt a lump in my throat. Without saying a word, I snatched the lottery tickets from Dad's hand. You know what? I'll take them. Merry bloody Christmas. I stormed out, ignoring their shocked faces. Who cared about their family dinner anyway? I texted my coworker Lauren. Hey, you still at the restaurant? Mind some company. An hour later, I was sitting at the bar of the closed restaurant, sipping cheap champagne with Lauren. As the night went on, we swapped stories about horrible families and crushed dreams. It wasn't exactly a warm, cozy Christmas, but at least I didn't feel so alone. A few days later, I was at work, same as usual. During my break, I checked my phone and saw a missed call from an unknown number. Probably just another scam, I muttered, tossing the phone aside. But then it rang again, same number. Curiosity got the better of me, and I answered. Hello, is this Rachel Jackson? A cheery voice asked. Yeah, who's this? This is Kelly from the State Lottery Commission. I'm calling to inform you that you're holding a winning ticket. I almost dropped the phone. What? Are you serious? Absolutely. One of your tickets matched all the numbers in the Christmas drawing. After taxes, your winnings come to $900,000. The world spun around me. In a daze, I headed home, my mind racing. This was it, my chance to finally open my own restaurant, to prove to everyone what I could do. I burst through the front door, unable to contain my excitement. You won't believe what happened. I blurted out. They were all sitting at the kitchen table, staring at me like I had grown a second head. I won the lottery. One of the tickets, the one I was going to give Mom, it won $900,000 after taxes. For a moment, there was stunned silence. Then Olivia's shrill voice broke the quiet. That money belongs to us, she screeched. You bought those tickets as gifts for Mom and Dad. Anything that belongs to them belongs to me. It felt like a slap in the face. No, they gave the tickets back to me. They're mine, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Mom and Dad exchanged a glance. Then Dad spoke slowly. Rachel, be reasonable. You live under our roof. You owe us. Now hand over that ticket. We'll take care of everything. I stepped back, my hand instinctively going to my pocket where the lottery ticket was. No, I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice was. This is my ticket, my win. I'm going to use it to open my own restaurant. Dad's face turned bright red. Now you listen here, young lady. No, you listen, I shouted, all the frustration from years of being treated like I didn't matter spilling out. I've spent my whole life being treated like I'm less than everyone else in this family. Well, not anymore. This is my chance, and I'm taking it. If that's how you feel, Mom said coldly, then you can get out of this house. Now. I looked at them, these people who were supposed to love me no matter what, and, in that moment, I saw them clearly for the first time. Fine, I whispered. I'm gone. I stormed upstairs, packed a few clothes and essentials into a bag, and walked out. They watched me leave, probably thinking I'd be back in a couple of days, begging to return. But they couldn't have been more wrong. My first stop was the lottery office to claim my winnings. Then I headed straight to a real estate agent. I need an apartment, I told the surprised agent. Something available immediately. By that evening, I was sitting in my very own place. It wasn't much, just a small one-bedroom in a decent neighborhood, but it was mine, all mine. As I sat on the floor, I hadn't had time to buy furniture yet, eating takeout and scrolling through restaurant equipment catalogs on my phone, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. First things first, I needed a solid business plan. I spent weeks glued to my laptop, researching, crunching numbers, and planning every single detail. After what seemed like endless revisions, I finally had a plan I was proud of. Next step. Finding the perfect location. I searched the city for the right spot, and eventually, I found it a small, rundown place that had been vacant for years. The landlord almost laughed when I told him I wanted to turn it into a restaurant. "Good luck with that, sweetheart," he said with a chuckle, handing me the keys. The next 4 months were a blur of hard work. I hired contractors, chose every fixture, and personally scrubbed every inch of the place. It was tough, back-breaking work, but each blister and bruise felt like a badge of honor. Finally, opening day arrived. I stood in the kitchen, my kitchen, surrounded by the staff I had personally hired and trained. When the first order came in, a rush of excitement surged through me. "Let's do this," I said, tying on my apron. The first few months were a blur. I worked 20-hour days, cooking, managing, and doing whatever needed to be done. Slowly but surely, word started to spread. People loved my food not just for the taste but for the care and creativity I put into every dish. I introduced a loyalty program for regular customers, offering them special discounts and first dibs on new menu items. It was a hit, and soon I had a core group of regulars who came in so often they felt like family. But I didn't stop there. I started a delivery service, partnering with local couriers to bring my food straight to people's homes. It was a risk at first. Keeping the quality high was tricky, but it paid off. Social media also became my best tool. I posted daily specials, behind-the-scenes videos from the kitchen, and talked with customers online. My follower count grew, and so did my customer base. 3 years in, I was finally turning a profit. It wasn't a huge amount, but it was something. I even started looking for a second location. Opening the second restaurant was easier. In some ways, I knew what I was doing this time, but harder in others. I couldn't be in 3 places at once, so I had to learn how to trust my staff and delegate responsibilities. We made it work, though, and 4 years after that, I opened my third location. Before I knew it, I was the proud owner of a successful restaurant chain. Me, Rachel Jackson, the girl who was never supposed to amount to anything. I won't lie, it wasn't easy. There were nights I cried myself to sleep, wondering if I'd taken on too much. Days when I wanted to quit and give up. But every time I walked into one of my restaurants, saw happy customers, and smelled the amazing food, I knew it was all worth it. One Saturday, I was in my office, going over the finances for my newest restaurant, when my phone rang. I glanced at the screen and froze. It was a number I hadn't seen in years. Home. For a moment, I thought about letting it go to voicemail, but curiosity got the best of me. I answered cautiously, "Hello? Rachel, it's Mom." Her voice was hesitant. "Look, I know we haven't been on the best terms, but we need your help. It's about Olivia." Of course, it was about Olivia. It always was. "What about her?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Dad's voice came on the line. "She's in trouble, Rachel. She lost her job. They're accusing her of theft, and now no one will hire her. We were hoping you might have a position for her at one of your restaurants." I almost laughed. After everything they put me through, now they had the nerve to ask for a favor. But then I thought about Olivia. Despite everything, she was still my sister. "Let me talk to her," I said, and Olivia came on the line. Her voice was small and scared. "Rachel, I'm sorry for everything. I really need help." I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. "Okay," I said finally. "I'll give you a job, but listen, there's no special treatment. If you mess up, you're out. Got it?" "Yes, thank you," Olivia said, her voice full of relief. The next morning, Olivia showed up right on time. She looked nervous but determined. I started her off with some basic administrative tasks, slowly increasing her responsibilities over time. To my surprise, she took the job seriously. She paid attention during training, asked good questions, and never complained about the work. One night, as we were closing up, Olivia broke down. "I need to tell you the truth," she sobbed. "I didn't steal anything from my last job. My boss, he tried to force himself on me. When I said no, he fired me and spread rumors that I was a thief." I felt a surge of anger. "Why didn't you report him? Who would believe me over him?" Olivia wiped her eyes. "I was so scared, Rachel. I didn't know what to do." "I believe you," I said, pulling her into a hug. "And I'm going to help you, okay? We'll figure this out together." Over the next few weeks, I focused on teaching Olivia everything I knew about running the restaurant. She soaked up the information like a sponge, eager to learn and prove herself. As I watched her confidently handle a rush of customers one day, I felt both proud and uneasy. Olivia was turning out to be a quick learner and a hard worker, but a little voice in the back of my mind warned me not to let my guard down completely. At first, everything seemed perfect. Olivia threw herself into the job with more enthusiasm than I'd ever seen from her before. She was always the first to arrive and the last to leave, taking on extra shifts and volunteering for the toughest tasks. But then, I started hearing whispers. At first, I brushed them off as typical workplace gossip, but the rumors kept growing louder. One day, Paul, my head chef, pulled me aside. "I think you need to know something," he said. "Your sister, she's been saying things, stirring up trouble." A chill ran down my spine. "What kind of things?" I asked. Paul looked uncomfortable. "She's been telling people they're underpaid, saying you're keeping all the profits for yourself. She's even suggested they go on strike." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "That's ridiculous. You all know how tight our margins are. I've always been open about the finances." "We know, boss," Paul reassured me. "None of us believe it, but there's more." He went on to tell me that Olivia had been claiming the restaurant rightfully belonged to her, saying I had somehow cheated her out of her share of the family money. It felt like a punch in the gut. After everything we'd been through, after I gave her a second chance, this is how she repaid me? That evening, I confronted Olivia, my hands shaking with anger and disappointment. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" I demanded. Olivia's face was blank, acting innocent. "What are you talking about, sis?" I told her everything I'd heard. To my shock, she just shrugged. "Oh, that," she said casually. "I was just testing the staff's loyalty, you know? Making sure they wouldn't turn on you. Looks like they passed with flying colors." I wanted to believe her really. I did, but something in her eyes, a cold and calculating glint, made me hesitate. Before I could say more, there was a frantic knock on my office door. Melissa, my assistant manager, came in looking pale and worried. "Rachel, we've got a problem," she said. "There's a big shortage in the cash register. Over $10,000 is missing." We spent hours going over the books, checking and rechecking everything. There was no mistake, a significant amount of money was gone. Only 4 people had access to the register: Melissa, Paul, and Olivia. I had known Melissa and Paul for years. They'd been with me from the start, through all the highs and lows. I trusted them completely. As if reading my thoughts, Olivia came up to me and whispered, "You know, I've noticed Melissa staying late a lot recently. And she did just buy that fancy new car." Watching Olivia walk away, I knew I had a big decision to make. I couldn't ignore this. There was too much at risk. My business, my reputation, and the livelihoods of my loyal employees. Late one night, after everyone had left, I installed hidden cameras around the cash registers. It felt wrong, like I was betraying my staff's trust, but I didn't have a choice. For days, I watched hours of boring footage, my eyes burning from staring at the screen. And then on the 5th night, I saw it. Olivia, moving quickly and secretly, opened the register. Her hands darted in and out, stuffing cash into her pockets. My heart sank. I couldn't bring myself to confront her, so I called the police. The next day, as Olivia was finishing her shift, 3 officers walked in. The look on her face, shock, then anger, said it all. She started thrashing around, knocking over tables and sending dishes crashing to the floor. "I deserve this money. I should be rich, not you. You stole my life," she screamed as the police took her away. I felt nothing, no sadness, no regret, just an emptiness where my love for her used to be. The next day, my parents stormed into the restaurant. Mom was crying, and Dad's face was red with rage. "How dare you?" Dad roared. "Your own sister. Drop the charges now." I stood my ground.
"No. She stole from me.
She needs to face the consequences." I pulled out my phone and showed them the footage of Olivia stealing. "Look," I said. "This is what your precious Olivia did. She's a thief." They watched the video, their faces going pale. But instead of understanding, their expressions hardened. "You set her up," Mom accused. "You've always been jealous of her." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Jealous? Are you kidding me? You gave me nothing and expected me to be grateful. Well, I'm done. Olivia made her choices, and now she is to live with them. They ranted and raved, switching between threats and pleas, but I didn't back down. Get out, I finally said. Get out of my restaurant, and get out of my life. If you don't leave now, I'm calling the police. They left, but not before Dad spat. You'll regret this, Rachel. Mark my words. The trial was a nightmare. Olivia's tearful performance on the stand almost made me doubt myself. But then came a surprise witness, her former boss. He testified about how Olivia had pursued him aggressively, threatening to accuse him of sexual harassment when he rejected her. He also explained how she had stolen money from the company in retaliation. In the end, the jury found her guilty. As they led her away, she gave me one last look. There was no remorse in her eyes, only cold hatred. I haven't spoken to my family since that day. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder if I made the right choice. But then I look at what I've built, at the life I've made for myself, and I know I did. Standing in the kitchen of my newest restaurant, watching my staff prepare for the dinner rush, a sense of peace washes over me. This is my family now. This is my home. And nobody, not Olivia, not my parents, not anyone can take that away from me. My name is Lauren. 13 years ago, I met Scott at a business networking event. He was a senior manager at a trading company, charming, smart, and with kind eyes that made me feel comfortable. What truly touched my heart, though, was how he talked about his 14-year-old daughter, Julie. The love in his voice when he mentioned her name was undeniable. I had built my chain of beauty salons from scratch. Success had given me everything, except the one thing I wanted most: a family. I couldn't have children, a truth I had come to accept. But meeting Scott and Julie felt like a second chance. 7 months later, we got married and they moved into my house. The difference in our incomes was significant. I earned several times more than Scott. But that never bothered me. Love isn't about money. I was just happy to finally have the family I had always dreamed of. When Julie turned 17, I bought her first car, a safe, reliable one. Her excitement was priceless. "This is really mine?" she asked, tears in her eyes as she hugged me tightly. "Thank you, Lauren. You're the best." 3 years later, when college acceptance letters arrived, I didn't think twice about offering to pay for her education. It wasn't Princeton, but it was a good school, and Julie was overjoyed. Those early years were wonderful. I finally had what I always wanted: a loving husband, a stepdaughter who seemed to appreciate me, and a home filled with laughter. After graduating, Julie decided to stay with us to save money as she started her career. I'll never forget one spring evening when she came home beaming with excitement. She had been dating Eric for 3 years. I knew him well. He was a kind young man, a software engineer who treated Julie with respect and care. When Julie burst through the door, waving her left hand with a sparkling diamond ring on it, I was caught off guard. "Dad. Lauren." "He proposed," she squealed, bouncing on her toes like a teenager instead of the 26-year-old woman she was. "We're getting married." Scott jumped up to hug her, his face glowing with happiness. As I stood there grinning like a fool, I realized this was the kind of family moment I had always dreamed of. Later that evening, Eric came over, and we opened a bottle of champagne I'd been saving for a special occasion. "I know this is a big ask," Julie said nervously, twisting her engagement ring as she spoke. "But we've been looking at venues and everything, and—" "How much?" I asked, already reaching for my phone to check my bank account. "Well, with everything included, around $230,000, she said quietly, then quickly added, "But of course, we don't expect." "Done," I interrupted with a smile. "I'll set up an account tomorrow for all the wedding expenses." The look of relief and happiness on her face made every penny worth it. "Really? Oh my gosh, Lauren, thank you so much," she exclaimed, throwing her arms around me. I hugged her back tightly, remembering the teenage girl who had welcomed me into her life all those years ago. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of excitement. Julie included me in everything at first. We'd sit at the kitchen table late into the night, flipping through wedding magazines and scrolling through Pinterest boards. She'd text me pictures of dresses she was considering and ask my thoughts on color schemes. "What do you think about these flowers?" she asked one evening, showing me pictures of elaborate bouquets. "Too much? Not enough." "I love the pink peonies," I replied, and she jotted it down in her wedding planner. She found her dream dress, a stunning designer gown that cost more than my first car. But I didn't even flinch at the price. Seeing her eyes light up when she tried it on was worth every dollar. The venue she picked was breathtaking, an elegant historic hotel downtown, complete with crystal chandeliers and marble floors. The menu was full of premium dishes that could impress any food critic. I transferred the money as promised, and Julie dove into the planning with enthusiasm. But about 3 months in, something changed. The detailed updates became brief and vague. Instead of spending evenings planning together, she started rushing through dinner and disappearing into her room or heading to Eric's place. "How's the planning going?" I asked one evening, hoping to reconnect. I'd ask, "How's everything going?" "Fine," she'd reply, barely looking up from her phone. "Everything's on track." When I tried to ask for more details, her answers were vague. "Oh, just finalizing some things." "Don't worry, it's all under control." I told myself not to feel hurt by being left out. Planning a wedding is stressful, and maybe she just needed space to make her own decisions. I remembered being young and wanting to prove I could handle things on my own. Scott noticed my worry one night as we got ready for bed. "Everything okay?" he asked. "You seem a little off." "I'm probably just overthinking," I said, forcing a smile. "It's just that Julie seems different lately, distant." "She's probably just busy with the wedding," he said, kissing my forehead. "You know how it is, so many details to handle. Don't worry too much." I nodded, trying to brush off my concerns, but there was a knot in my stomach that wouldn't go away. Something felt off. The happy little bubble we had been living in seemed to be developing cracks, and I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. As the weeks went by, I decided to get more involved in the wedding planning. One morning, while we were having coffee, I brought up something that had been bothering me. "Julie, honey, I was wondering about the guest list," I said casually, watching her scroll through her phone. "Have you figured out how many people you're inviting?" She looked up briefly. "Oh yeah, we're keeping it small, about 80 people. That sounds nice. Intimate," I said, nodding. Then I added, "I'd love to include my parents and my sister. They've always adored you, and they'd be thrilled to be there." The change in Julie's expression was immediate and unsettling. Her face turned cold, and she slowly put down her phone. "Actually, we're only inviting close relatives and friends," she said, her tone firm. "This is supposed to be a really personal celebration. I don't want to include people who aren't, actually family." Her words felt like a slap. After 14 years, after everything we'd shared, she didn't see my family as real family. It hit me like a bucket of cold water, and for a moment, I didn't know how to respond. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my tone calm. "Julie, I get that you want to keep things small and personal. But my parents have known you since you were 14. They've been there for all your birthdays and even your graduation." I paused and added softly, "And I am paying for the entire wedding. Surely we can make an exception for 4 people who genuinely care about you." Her face immediately twisted into a pout, and I saw anger flash in her eyes when I mentioned money. She pushed her chair back from the table with more force than necessary.
"Fine," she snapped.
"I'll send invitations to your mom and sister. Happy now." Before I could say anything, she grabbed her phone and stormed out of the kitchen. A few moments later, I heard the front door slam. That evening, Scott walked into our bedroom with a familiar look on his face, the one that warned me I wouldn't like what he was about to say. "We need to talk about what happened with Julie today," he started, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Okay," I said, putting my book down. "What about it?" "She called me earlier, crying. She said you were really rude to her about the guest list. She's staying at Eric's tonight because she's so upset." I stared at him in disbelief. "Rude?" "Scott, she told me my family isn't welcome at her wedding. A wedding that I'm paying for." And I stayed calm the entire time when I talked to her about it. "I know," he said gently, "but maybe you could have been a little more careful with how you said it." She's under a lot of stress with all the wedding planning. I explained exactly what had happened, word for word, and I could see him processing it. He ran a hand through his hair, something he always did when he was troubled. Okay, he finally said. I get it now. I'll talk to her about it tomorrow. The next 3 weeks passed uneasily. Julie came back home and acted like nothing had happened. She chatted about wedding details during breakfast and even asked my opinion on centerpieces again. But something didn't feel right, like the quiet before a storm. And then the bombshell dropped at dinner. So, Julie said, pushing her pasta around her plate, Mom found out about the wedding. She's back in town. I nearly choked on my wine, and Scott's fork clattered against his plate. In 14 years, Julie's mother, Kelly, had barely been a topic in our home. All I knew was the basics. Kelly had struggled with drinking, which led to her divorce from Scott. After that, she moved to California and essentially abandoned Julie. No birthday cards, no Christmas calls, nothing. She really wants to be involved in the wedding planning, Julie said, her voice full of excitement I couldn't understand. Actually, I invited her over for dinner this weekend. I gripped my wine glass tightly. This was my house, the house I'd bought with my own money, the house where I had worked hard to build a home for all of us. The right thing would have been for Julie to ask me first before inviting someone over, especially someone with Kelly's past. But after the guest list argument, I decided to hold my tongue. One more confrontation wasn't worth it. Scott didn't say a word. He suddenly looked very interested in his pasta. That weekend, I spent hours preparing dinner, a perfectly roasted rack of lamb, vegetables, and homemade bread. I wanted everything to be flawless, though I couldn't explain why I felt the need to impress a woman who had abandoned her own child. Kelly showed up exactly 50 minutes late. She was tall and blonde like Julie, but where Julie was soft and warm, Kelly seemed sharp and cold. Her eyes scanned every corner of my home as she walked in, lingering on the artwork, the furniture, and the view from the windows. Her gaze wasn't subtle, it was the kind of look meant to measure and judge. "What a large house," she said, dragging out the word large as if it were something to be ashamed of. Dinner started politely enough, but that didn't last long. Kelly took a bite of the lamb and pursed her lips. She said, cutting another piece with slow, deliberate movements. "You know, I always made this with rosemary and garlic. It really brings out the flavor better. Julie used to love it when I made it." Her tone was light, but the words felt like a jab, as if she was reminding me that no matter what, she would always be Julie's mother. I took a sip of wine and stayed quiet. Kelly wasn't done. "And these vegetables," she went on, pushing them around her plate. "They're a bit overdone, don't you think? I always found keeping them crispy makes them so much better." With every comment, I waited for Scott to speak up, anything to defend me. He had been married to this woman before. He knew exactly what she was doing. But he stayed silent, his eyes fixed on his plate, cutting his food into smaller and smaller pieces. I sat there, feeling the weight of her words as she criticized my cooking in my own home. Meanwhile, my husband said nothing, and my stepdaughter looked at Kelly like she was a queen returned to her throne. Something inside me shifted, hardened, as I watched the scene unfold. As dinner wound down, Kelly dabbed her lips with her napkin and turned to Julie. "So, honey, tell me about the venue. Which hotel did you pick?" "The Grand Morrison downtown," Julie replied, her face lighting up at the change in topic. "It's beautiful, Mom. They have these amazing crystal chandeliers." Kelly's expression soured. "Oh, sweetie, you can't have your wedding there. That place is so basic. Now, the Belmont Plaza, that's where you should be having it. It's much more prestigious." I gripped my fork tighter, knowing the Belmont Plaza cost almost double what we were already spending. "The wedding we're planning isn't exactly cheap," I said, trying to keep my tone calm. "And the Grand Morrison is a beautiful venue." Kelly's eyes narrowed. "Well, you can't cut corners on your only daughter's wedding. It's the most important day of her life." Something in me snapped. 13 years of love, support, and financial sacrifice, dismissed as cutting corners by a woman who hadn't even sent her daughter a birthday card. "If you're so worried about the venue," I said, meeting her gaze directly, Feel free to pay for the Belmont Plaza yourself. Since I'm covering the entire $230,000 for this wedding, I think the Grand Morrison will do just fine." The silence that followed was deafening. Kelly's face turned red, and she stood up so quickly her chair scraped against the floor. "I can see I'm not welcome here," Kelly announced, grabbing her purse. "Julie, call me tomorrow, honey." She stormed out, slamming the front door behind her. Julie spun around to face me, her face red with anger. "How dare you?" she screamed. "How dare you throw money in my mom's face like that? You're cruel and selfish, and you've ruined everything." Then she ran upstairs, slamming her door shut. I sat there, stunned, as Scott poured himself another glass of wine. Later that night, he came into our bedroom, looking serious. "You need to apologize to Julie," he said firmly. "What you said to Kelly was completely out of line." I stared at him, shocked. "Apologize? For what? Telling the truth? Your ex-wife came into my house, insulted everything I did, and called me cheap for paying for this entire wedding. You didn't have to embarrass her like that," he shot back. "Now Julie's upset, too." "I'm not apologizing," I said firmly. "Not this time." He grabbed his pillow.
"Fine.
"I'll sleep in the living room until you come to your senses." The next morning, I was in the kitchen making coffee when my phone rang. It was my mom. "Laura, honey," she said, her voice full of concern. "I wanted to ask you about Julie's wedding. What's the date and the venue? Your dad and I haven't received an invitation yet, and neither has Olivia." I thought maybe they got lost in the mail. I hung up the phone and sat at the kitchen counter, staring into space. My coffee grew cold beside me as the morning sun moved across the floor. With each passing minute, my anger grew stronger. Around 12, I heard Julie's key in the lock. She had been out since breakfast, probably with Kelly. "Julie," I called out, keeping my voice steady even though I was boiling inside. "We need to talk." She walked into the kitchen, still wearing the same clothes from the day before. "What is it?" she asked, not quite looking me in the eye. "I just got a call from my mom," I said, watching Julie's face closely. She was asking about the wedding invitations, the ones that never arrived. Julie's expression hardened, and a look I'd never seen before crossed her face. She lifted her chin defiantly. "I'm not inviting them," she said. "Excuse me? I'm not inviting strangers to my wedding," she replied, her words sharp and cold. The word strangers hit me like a punch. My parents had been at every Christmas, every birthday, every milestone for 14 years. My sister had even helped Julie prepare for her college interviews. "Strangers?" I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. "That's wrong, Julie. And it's cruel. These people have loved you and supported you for years." She laughed, but it wasn't the laugh I knew. It was bitter and harsh. "You want to talk about cruel? After the way you treated my mom last night?" Her eyes burned with anger. "Actually, you know what? I don't want you at my wedding either." Time seemed to freeze. The kitchen fell silent except for the soft hum of the refrigerator. 13 years of love, support, and sacrifice, all reduced to this moment. "Let me get this straight," I said slowly. "You don't want me, the person paying for your entire wedding, to attend?" "That's right," she said, lifting her chin even higher. An odd sense of calm washed over me. All the hurt and anger of the past few weeks solidified into a kind of clarity. I smiled, and the unexpected reaction seemed to unnerve her slightly. "That's fine," I said lightly. "I won't come to your wedding." Without another word, I walked upstairs to my home office. My hands were steady as I logged into my banking app and removed Julie's access to the wedding account. It took less than a minute, just a few clicks, to undo what had taken 14 years to build. Then I picked up the phone and called Brian, the wedding planner. He answered on the second ring. "Brian, this is Lauren Harrison. I need you to cancel all the wedding arrangements." "Excuse me?" Brian sounded confused. "Is everything okay?" "No, it's not," I said honestly, "but it will be. Please cancel everything and refund the money to my account." My next call was to the Grand Morrison. The events manager was polite but firm. They couldn't refund the deposit for the food and drinks that had already been ordered. A few $1,000s were lost, but at that moment, it felt worth it. That evening, the house was quiet. Scott was still sleeping on the couch in the living room. As I got ready for bed, I could hear him shifting restlessly. Lying alone in the dark, I realized something surprising. I didn't feel sad anymore. I felt free. The next morning, I dressed carefully. I put on my favorite blue silk blouse and pearl earrings, like armor for what I knew was coming. When I finally went downstairs for breakfast, the tension hit me immediately. Julie and Scott were already at the kitchen table, clearly waiting for me. As soon as I walked in, Julie shot to her feet, her face red with fury. "What did you do?" she screamed. "How dare you cancel my wedding? How dare you block my access to the account? That money was for my wedding." I poured myself a cup of coffee, keeping my movements calm and steady. "I'm not going to pay for a wedding I'm not invited to," I said simply, taking a sip. "You can't do this," she shouted, her voice rising as tears started to stream down her face. "You've ruined everything. The venue, the flowers, the dress, it's all gone." I set my coffee cup down carefully. "Actually, I can do this." And I did. "Why don't you ask the people you do want at your wedding to pay for it?" Her face crumpled, and she let out a heartbreaking sob before running from the kitchen. Her footsteps pounded up the stairs, followed by the slam of her bedroom door. Scott stood up slowly, his face dark with anger. "Fix this," he growled. "Right now. Call everyone back, reopen the account, and put everything back in place. Or I'll file for divorce." His words hung in the air like a threat, and in that moment, 14 years of marriage seemed to shrink into nothing. I looked at the man I once loved, really looked at him, and wondered how I had missed the side of him all these years. "Okay," I said calmly. "File for divorce. I'm not against it." The color drained from his face. He clearly hadn't expected that response. "Lauren, you can't be serious," he said, his voice shaky. "I am," I replied firmly. "And since this is my house, I'd like you and Julie to leave by tomorrow." His anger seemed to deflate like a balloon. "Look," he said, his tone softer now, almost pleading. "I overreacted. We need to talk about this, think it through." "I've already thought it through," I said, cutting him off. "I'm done living with people who don't appreciate or respect me. I'm done trying to buy love." The rest of the day passed in a haze of slammed doors and muffled arguments upstairs. At exactly 8 p.m., Scott and Julie stood in the foyer with their suitcases. Julie's eyes were red and swollen from crying. "I never thought you could be so cruel," she said, her voice trembling with anger. I felt a laugh bubble up inside me, a laugh of pure disbelief. "Cruel?" I asked, shaking my head. "I paid for your clothes, your car, your education. I gave you a home. I loved you like my own daughter and was ready to spend $230,000 on your wedding. And you're calling me cruel because I won't let you treat me like dirt." Neither of them had a response. The door closed behind them with a soft click, so much quieter than the angry slams of the past few days. I stood in my foyer, my house, and listened to the silence. It felt different, lighter, somehow, as if a weight I hadn't realized I was carrying had finally been lifted. In the days that followed, I busied myself by reorganizing the house, reclaiming rooms that had slowly become filled with Julie's things over the years. It felt healing, like cleaning out an old wound. Then, one evening as I sipped a glass of wine on the patio, a message popped up on my social media. It was from Eric's mother. "I hope you realize what you've done," it read. "This wedding could fail entirely because of your actions. How can you be so heartless?" I took my time responding, carefully choosing my words. "I'm not heartless," I wrote back. "I'm just done being disrespected. I won't pay for a wedding I'm not even invited to. If you're so worried about the wedding, feel free to pay for it yourself." She read the message, but didn't reply. I imagined her sitting there, probably as shocked as Scott had been, unable to believe I wouldn't back down. It's funny how people react when you finally stand up for yourself. They look at you like you've broken some unspoken rule. The next day, I called my lawyer. She had helped draft my prenup 14 years ago, and now she helped me end the marriage it had protected. The divorce papers were ready in a week. When I called Scott to tell him, he tried his usual tactics. "Laura, please," he said, his voice soft and pleading, the voice that used to make my heart melt. "We can start over. We can fix this." I hung up. The next morning, he came to pick up the papers. He looked older somehow, worn out. The confident man who had threatened me with divorce just days before now seemed lost. "Julie's been crying nonstop," he said, standing in my foyer, no longer our foyer. "The wedding's going to be at City Hall now. No reception, no flowers, no fancy dress. Just a simple ceremony." I shrugged, remembering all the tears I had shed over their betrayal. "That's not my problem." "How can you be so cold about this?" he asked, his voice full of disbelief. "It's not cold, Scott," I said evenly. "It's just not my responsibility anymore." He took the papers and left. I watched as he walked his car, the car I had bought him, and drove away. It felt final. Not sad, just finished. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. The prenup made everything straightforward. He couldn't touch my house, my business, or any of my assets. Sometimes I wondered if he had ever truly read that document, if he understood what it meant when he signed it all those years ago. But it didn't matter anymore. People occasionally ask me if I know how Julie's wedding turned out. Did she wear the dress she picked? Was Kelly there? Was it everything she had dreamed of? I don't know. I blocked them all on social media, changed my phone number, and moved on with my life. What I do know is this: you can't buy love, not real love anyway. You can't buy respect, gratitude, or loyalty. And now I don't have to try. I spent 14 years trying to create a family with my money, but in the end, all it got me was a front row seat to see that family choose someone else over me. But the thing about endings is that they're also new beginnings. My house is quiet now, my business is doing better than ever, and when I sit in my garden with my morning coffee, watching the sunrise over the flowers, I don't feel lonely. I feel free.
The call came at 2:17 p.m. on a Tuesday. I remember because I was staring at my computer screen, mindlessly watching the clock tick by during another endless Zoom meeting. The hospital's number flashed across my phone and my stomach dropped before I even answered. "My name is Vivian," and that call changed everything. "Mrs. Swanson? This is Mercy General. Your husband Owen has been in a serious accident." The rest was a blur of words: head-on collision, critical condition, emergency surgery. I don't remember hanging up or driving to the hospital. I just remember the fluorescent lights of the ICU waiting room and the smell of industrial cleaner that couldn't quite mask the underlying scent of illness and fear. "Where is he?" I demanded at the nurse's station, my hands shaking as I gripped my purse. "I'm Owen Swanson's wife." A kind-faced nurse led me to a small consultation room. "The doctor will be in shortly. Would you like some water?" I shook my head, pacing the tiny space. When the doctor finally arrived, his grave expression told me everything before he spoke a word. "Mrs. Swanson, your husband sustained severe trauma. We've stabilized him, but he's in a coma. The next 48 hours are critical." I was still processing this when the door burst open. Meredith swept in like a winter storm, her perfectly coiffed silver hair and designer outfit a stark contrast to my disheveled appearance. "Where is my son?" she demanded, not even acknowledging my presence. Jonathan, her husband, followed close behind, his face tight with worry. The doctor repeated the information, and Meredith immediately took charge. "I want the best neurologist. Who's handling his care? What's the treatment plan?" I stood there, feeling increasingly invisible as she fired questions at the doctor. When she finally turned to me, her eyes were sharp with accusation. "Vivian, why didn't you call us immediately?" I I just found out myself. I came straight here." "Hmm." She turned back to the doctor. "We'll need to see him now." The ICU visit was restricted to 2 people at a time. Before I could move, Meredith grabbed Jonathan's arm. "We'll go first. Parents should see him immediately." I watched them disappear down the hallway, my throat tight with unshed tears. A nurse touched my arm gently. "Would you like to sit down?" Hours passed in a haze of medical updates and hushed conversations. When I finally got to see Owen, the sight of him, so still, so unlike himself, nearly broke me. Tubes and wires surrounded him like a technological cocoon. I touched his hand, careful to avoid the IV lines. "I'm here," I whispered. I'm right here. That evening, Meredith announced she and Jonathan would be staying at our house. Owen will need round the clock care when he comes home. We need to prepare everything. I can handle, I started to say, but she cut me off. Vivian, dear, this isn't the time for pride. You'll need help. We're family. I was too exhausted to argue. When we got home, Meredith immediately began reorganizing the kitchen, claiming she needed to set up a proper care station. Jonathan started moving furniture in the living room to make space for medical equipment. I retreated to our bedroom, mine and Owen's, only to find Meredith following me. The master bedroom has the best layout for monitoring equipment, she said, running her hand along the dresser. I'll sleep here. You can take the guest room. It'll be more peaceful for you. I stared at her, unable to process what I was hearing. This is my bedroom. Don't be difficult, dear. This is about what's best for Owen. Her smile was gentle, but her eyes were cold. You want what's best for Owen, don't you? I opened my mouth to protest, but the words wouldn't come. I was too drained, too shocked by the day's events to fight. I grabbed my pajamas and toiletries, feeling like a stranger in my own home. As I lay in the guest bed that night, listening to Meredith's footsteps in my bedroom, I remembered Owen's words from years ago. My mother, she has a way of taking over. Promise me you'll never let her push you around. I had laughed then, thinking he was exaggerating. Now, staring at the unfamiliar ceiling, I realized he had been warning me. My phone buzzed. A text from my best friend Kendra. How are you holding up? I typed back, they're here, in my house, in my bedroom. Her response was immediate. Want me to come over? Not tonight, but soon. I think I'm going to need backup. I turned off my phone and closed my eyes, trying to block out the sound of Meredith's voice drifting through the walls as she spoke to Jonathan. This was just temporary, I told myself, just until Owen got better. I had no idea then that this was only the beginning. I woke to classical music drifting through the house, not just from one room, it seemed to come from everywhere. Following the sound downstairs, I found Meredith directing a technician who was installing speakers in every corner of our living room. What's happening? I asked, still in my pajamas. Owen always loved classical music, Meredith said, not looking at me. The doctors say familiar sounds can help coma patients recover. I've arranged for a whole house audio system without asking me? She finally turned, her expression a perfect blend of concern and condescension. Oh, I didn't want to burden you with these details. You're clearly overwhelmed. Before I could respond, Jonathan emerged from the kitchen. The new refrigerator will be delivered tomorrow. The old one isn't suitable for storing medical supplies. New refrigerator? I felt like I was in a bizarre dream. We don't need. Vivian? Meredith cut in. Perhaps you should get dressed. It's nearly noon. I glanced at the clock. It was 9:30 a.m. Upstairs, I found my bathroom had been reorganized. My toiletries were gone, replaced with new ones. Even my toothbrush was different. I stood there gripping the sink when my phone buzzed. It was Kendra. I'm outside. Brought coffee. I nearly ran downstairs, ignoring Meredith's disapproving look as I rushed past. Kendra took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug. That bad? We sat in her car and I told her everything, the speakers, the refrigerator, my displaced belongings. They're isolating you, Kendra said, her lawyer instincts kicking in. That's abuse 101. They're trying to make you feel powerless in your own home. Maybe they're just trying to help, I said, but the words felt hollow. Like hell they are. Kendra's eyes narrowed. Remember what Owen told you about them? The memory hit me like a wave. Owen and I, 3 years ago, sitting in our kitchen after a particularly tense dinner with his parents. I'm sorry about Mom, he had said, running a hand through his hair. She's always been like this, controlling everything, everyone. She nearly drove my last girlfriend to a breakdown. Layla? I'd asked. Yeah. Mom loved her at first, then tried to remake her into the perfect daughter-in-law. When Layla resisted, he shook his head. It got ugly. Back in Kendra's car, I took a deep breath. Owen warned me, I just never thought that they'd strike while he's vulnerable. Kendra squeezed my hand. You need to start documenting everything. When I returned inside, the living room furniture had been completely rearranged. Our cozy sectional was gone, replaced by stiff backed chairs. The photos on the walls, our wedding pictures, vacation memories had been taken down. Where are our pictures? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Too cluttered, Jonathan said from his new command post in Owen's office. We need a calm environment for his recovery. When he comes home, I started, but Jonathan interrupted. It's not easy for everyone to be a caregiver, Vivian. Some people just aren't cut out for it. That afternoon, I discovered they'd converted Owen's home gym into a medical supply room. Our bedroom, my bedroom now, had been stripped of personal items. The walls were bare, the dresser empty, except for medical reference books. I was heading to the kitchen when I overheard Meredith on the phone. Yes, we'll need to update all the emergency contacts. No, not the wife. I'm his mother. I'll be making the decisions. Yes, I understand about medical proxy, but circumstances change. My hands started shaking. I retreated to the guest room, my room now, and called Kendra. They're trying to take control of his medical decisions. I whispered. They can't, Kendra said firmly. You're his wife. You have rights. But what if a knock at my door made me jump? Meredith stood there, holding a stack of papers. Vivian, dear, we need to discuss Owen's care plan. I've made some decisions. I stared at her, remembering Owen's words. Don't let her push you around. Actually, I said, standing straighter, I think we should discuss this at the hospital, with Owen's doctors present. Something flickered in Meredith's eyes, surprise, maybe anger, but her smile never wavered. Of course, dear, whatever you think is best. She turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and I've arranged for some of your things to be moved to storage. We'll need the space for medical equipment. As her footsteps faded, I texted Kendra. They're not just pushing me out of my room, they're trying to erase me completely. Her response was immediate. Don't let them. This is your house, your life, your husband. Fight back. Looking around at the increasingly unfamiliar space that was once my home, I realized she was right. It was time to fight back. I just had to figure out how. I came home from the hospital one evening to find my suitcases packed and lined up in the hallway. Not just one bag, all of my suitcases, filled with my clothes, shoes, even my jewelry box. Meredith appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Oh, good. You're back. I've arranged a lovely suite at the Marriott. You need rest, dear. Real rest. I stared at the suitcases, then at her. I'm not going anywhere. Don't be difficult. Her voice took on that sickly sweet tone I'd grown to hate. Jonathan and I have everything under control here. The new nurse is arriving tomorrow. New nurse? My head snapped up. What new nurse? Stephanie. She comes highly recommended. Meredith smiled. I've already cleared it with the hospital. I pulled out my phone, dialing Owen's doctor. Dr. Roberts, this is Vivian. I understand there's been a change in Owen's nursing care. Meredith's face tightened as I spoke to the doctor. When I hung up, I turned to her. Funny, Dr. Roberts knows nothing about a new nurse. I was going to discuss it with the medical team tomorrow, she said smoothly. Stephanie is private care, more personalized attention. The next day, I met Stephanie. She was younger than I expected, with an awkward manner that set off immediate alarm bells. When she checked Owen's vitals, she fumbled with the equipment. Her answers about her experience were vague. I cornered her in the hallway. Where did you work before this? Oh, various places, she said, not meeting my eyes. Mrs. Meredith can verify everything. I bet she can, I thought. That evening, I started researching Stephanie online. No nursing license came up under her name. No professional profiles. Nothing. Found anything? Kendra asked when I called her. Nothing. It's like she doesn't exist as a nurse. Because she probably isn't one, Kendra said. This is getting dangerous, Viv. They're bringing an unqualified person to care for Owen. A commotion from Owen's room interrupted us. I rushed in to find Stephanie struggling with his IV line. Stop! I moved to intervene, but Meredith blocked my path. She knows what she's doing, Meredith snapped. Does she? Because I can't find any record of her nursing license. The room went silent. Stephanie looked at Meredith, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. He needs us, not you, Meredith hissed, dropping all pretense of kindness. You're just making things worse. I pulled out my phone. I'm calling hospital security. Go ahead. Meredith smiled. I've already spoken with administration about your emotional state, how you're not coping well, how you might need a break from making decisions. My hand shook as I dialed anyway. Within minutes, hospital security arrived, followed by the charge nurse. Stephanie's credentials were questioned. She couldn't produce a valid license. Ma'am, you'll have to leave, the security guard told her. As Stephanie was escorted out, I overheard Meredith on her phone in the hallway. Yes, I need information about transferring power of attorney. No, it's regarding my son. Yes, I understand his wife currently holds it, but given the circumstances, my blood ran cold. I slipped into the bathroom, calling Kendra again. They're trying to take Owen's power of attorney from me, I whispered. They can't, Kendra said firmly. Not without cause, but Viv, you need to be careful. They're building a case against you. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak in the house made me jump. I could hear Meredith and Jonathan talking in low voices downstairs. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Mrs. Swanson, this is Chad, Owen's cousin. We need to talk. It's about Meredith. I hesitated, then replied, About what? Not over text. Can we meet tomorrow? It's important. I agreed to meet him at a coffee shop near the hospital. As I set my phone down, I heard footsteps approaching my room. The door opened without a knock. Meredith. Vivian, we need to discuss your behavior today, she said. Your paranoid accusations about Stephanie, your emotional outbursts. It's clear you're not handling this well. I sat up straighter. Get out of my room. Your room? She laughed softly. Oh dear. You still don't understand, do you? This isn't your house anymore. This isn't your life anymore. Owen needs his family now. His real family. She turned to leave, then looked back. I'd start looking for a new place if I were you. Things are about to change. After she left, I sat in the dark, my heart pounding. They weren't just trying to push me out anymore. They were trying to take everything, my home, my rights, my husband. But they didn't know what I knew. They didn't know what Owen and I had planned for exactly this kind of situation. Tomorrow I'd meet with Chad, and then, I decided, the real fight would begin. The coffee shop was quiet when Chad walked in. He looked nervous, constantly glancing over his shoulder as he sat down across from me. Thanks for meeting me, he said, his voice low. Look, I need to tell you something about Aunt Meredith. She's done this before. I leaned forward. Done what? This whole takeover thing. When my mom got sick, Meredith swooped in to help. Within months, she had power of attorney, control of the house, everything. Mom was too weak to fight back. What happened? Chad's hands tightened around his coffee cup. Mom lost everything. The house was sold. The money disappeared. Meredith claimed it went to medical bills, but he shook his head. Now I'm hearing things. About you, about Owen's accounts. Before he could continue, Jonathan's voice boomed through the coffee shop. Chad, what a surprise! Chad jumped like he'd been shocked. Jonathan pulled up a chair, his smile not reaching his eyes. Catching up with Vivian? How nice. His tone suggested it was anything but nice. I was just leaving, Chad mumbled, standing quickly. As he turned to go, he whispered, Check the house deed. I watched him hurry out, Jonathan's eyes boring into his back. Vivian, Jonathan said, turning to me, I was actually looking for you. We've been talking to a real estate agent. The house isn't suitable for Owen's long-term care. We're thinking of listing it. The world seemed to tilt. Listing? My house? Now, don't get emotional. It's what's best for Owen. He pulled out some papers. The agent can come by tomorrow. I stood up so abruptly my chair scraped loudly against the floor. I need to go. 20 minutes later, I was in Kendra's office, my hands shaking as I told her everything. They can't sell the house, she said, pulling out a file. Don't you remember? Owen made sure of that. The memory hit me like a thunderbolt. 2 years ago, Owen and I sitting in this very office. My mother will try something eventually, he had said. I want to make sure you're protected. The prenup, I whispered, watching Kendra pull out the document. Not just any prenup, she said, spreading the papers on her desk. Owen put the house solely in your name, along with most of the assets you acquired before marriage. He knew exactly what his parents were capable of. Why didn't you remind me sooner? You needed to see their true colors first, she said. Now we can fight back. That afternoon, I returned home to find Meredith directing movers to pack up more of my belongings. What are you doing? I demanded. Just making space, dear. The real estate agent is coming tomorrow to take photos. No, they're not. My voice was steady, surprising even me. This is my house, legally, solely in my name. Meredith's smile faltered for just a second. Don't be ridiculous. Owen? Owen put the house in my name 2 years ago. Check the property records. The color drained from her face. You're lying. Am I? Call the agent. Have them check. I'll wait. She pulled out her phone, stepping into the other room. I could hear her voice rising, then falling to a harsh whisper. When she returned, her mask had cracked. You manipulative little. A knock at the door interrupted her. A locksmith stood on the porch, tools in hand. Mrs. Swanson? He asked. I'm here to change the locks. The homeowner called. Meredith's smile returned. Yes, that's right, I called you. Actually, I said, stepping forward, I'm Mrs. Swanson, and I didn't call for a locksmith. The man looked confused. I have an order here from Mrs. Meredith Swanson. I'll need to see ID from the legal homeowner, he said, looking between us. The silence that followed was deafening. Meredith's face went from confident to uncertain to furious in the span of seconds. This isn't over, she said quietly as the locksmith left. You have no idea what you're dealing with. Actually, I do. I pulled out my phone, showing her the texts from Chad. I know about what you did to his mother, the missing money, the sold house. Does Jonathan know about all of it? For the first time, I saw real fear in her eyes. That night, as I lay in bed, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Watch your back. Meredith always wins. I thought about Owen lying in his hospital bed, about our house, our life together, the precautions he'd taken to protect me from exactly this situation. Not this time, I whispered to the dark. This time, she's met her match. Another knock at the door made me freeze. It was nearly midnight. Through the window, I could see the locksmith's van. Mrs. Swanson? A voice called. Emergency lock change requested by the homeowner. The game was far from over. I opened the door to find a different locksmith than earlier, flanked by Meredith and Jonathan. Meredith's smile was triumphant. Evening services cost extra, she told the locksmith, but it's worth it to ensure everyone's safety. I'll need to see the homeowner's ID, the locksmith said, looking between us. Of course. Meredith pulled out her ID. I'm Mrs. Swanson. She is Mrs. Swanson, I said calmly, but I'm the homeowner. I retrieved the deed and my ID from the entry table where I'd left them after the earlier attempt. You can verify the property records online. The locksmith checked both IDs against his phone. His eyes widened slightly. Ma'am, he said to Meredith, I can't proceed. The property is registered to Vivian Swanson. There must be a mistake, Jonathan cut in. Our son owns this house. No mistake, I said, holding up my phone with the property records displayed. Owen transferred ownership to me 2 years ago. It's all legal and registered. Meredith's face went white, then red. You scheming little. I think we're done here, I told the locksmith. Thank you for your time. After he left, the three of us stood in the foyer, tension crackling like static electricity. You have 30 days to vacate, I said, my voice steady despite my pounding heart. You're trespassing now. You can't do this, Meredith hissed. He's our son. Yes, and he's my husband, the husband who knew exactly what you might try to do. I met her gaze. The husband who protected me from you before he even needed to. Jonathan grabbed Meredith's arm. Let's go. No. She yanked free. You'll regret this, Vivian. I promise you will. Get out of my house. They left, but Meredith turned back at the door. You think you've won? You have no idea what's coming. I locked the door behind them, my hands shaking as I called Kendra. They tried the locksmith trick again, I said. But that's not the end, is it? No, Kendra replied. Document everything. They'll be back. She was right. The next morning, I arrived at the hospital to find Meredith already there, speaking intensely with Owen's doctor. Concerns about her mental state, I heard her say. The stress is clearly too much. What's going on? I asked loudly, making them both turn. Mrs. Swanson, Dr. Roberts said, looking uncomfortable. Your mother-in-law was just expressing some concerns. About my mental state? I pulled out my phone, starting a recording. Please, Meredith, continue. Tell the doctor exactly what you think about my mental state. On record. Meredith's mouth snapped shut. Actually, I continued, let's discuss, Stephanie, the unlicensed nurse you tried to install. Or should we talk about the missing money from Chad's mother's accounts? How dare you? No, how dare you? I stepped closer. You want to play dirty? Fine. But remember, I have the house, I have the legal rights, and I have witnesses to your attempts to sabotage Owen's care. Dr. Roberts cleared his throat. Perhaps we should focus on Owen's treatment. Absolutely, I said, not taking my eyes off Meredith. As his legal medical proxy, I'd like to review his care plan, alone. Meredith's face contorted with rage, but she had no choice. As she stormed out, her heels clicking against the hospital floor, she bumped into Chad, who was just arriving. What are you doing here? She snapped. Supporting family, he said quietly, moving to stand beside me. After reviewing Owen's care plan with Dr. Roberts, I found Chad waiting in the hallway. There's more, he said. Aunt Meredith's been talking to Layla. Owen's ex? Yeah, she's planning something. I overheard her on the phone, talking about old photos, messages. My phone buzzed. A text from Kendra. Emergency. Come to my office now. They're trying to invalidate your marriage, Kendra said when I arrived. Meredith's filed papers claiming Owen was coerced into the property transfer. She's also hinting at evidence of infidelity. I laughed bitterly. Of course she is. This is serious, Viv. She's playing to win. So am I. I pulled out my phone, showing her the recording from the hospital. And unlike her, I actually have evidence. As I drove home that evening, I noticed a familiar car parked outside my house. Through the window, I could see Meredith talking to someone, a woman with long dark hair. Layla. Game on, I whispered, pulling into the driveway. Game absolutely on. I walked into my house to find Layla sitting in my living room like she belonged there, Meredith serving her tea in my grandmother's china. Vivian? Layla smiled, all perfect teeth and practiced warmth. It's been so long. Not long enough, I replied, setting my bag down. Why are you in my house? Oh, Meredith invited me. We've been catching up. She pulled out her phone. Looking at old photos, actually. Want to see? She held up the screen. There was Owen sitting in a coffee shop, apparently deep in conversation with Layla. The timestamp showed 2 days ago. My heart stopped. That's impossible. Is it? Meredith's voice dripped with false concern. Owen's been meeting Layla for months. Haven't you noticed his long lunches, the late meetings? Owen's been in a coma for weeks, I said through gritted teeth. Try again. Layla's smile faltered slightly. This was before. The metadata on digital photos shows exactly when they were taken. I interrupted, reaching for her phone. Shall we check? She snatched it back quickly. That's private. Like the private conversations you've been having with Meredith, planning to fake evidence of an affair? The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Meredith set down her teacup with a sharp clink. You should be careful with accusations, she said softly. They can backfire. Like hiring an unlicensed nurse backfired? I pulled out my own phone. Or should we discuss the interesting financial records Chad found? Layla looked between us, her confidence wavering. Meredith, you said this would be simple. It is simple, Meredith snapped. Vivian is leaving, one way or another. My phone buzzed, a text from Kendra. Got the hospital records you needed, and something else. Call now. Excuse me, I said, heading to the kitchen. Feel free to show yourselves out. You're making a mistake, Meredith called after me. We can make this very ugly. Once in the kitchen, I called Kendra. You're not going to believe this, she said. I found Layla's divorce records. Guess who helped her fake evidence in her last divorce case? Meredith? Bingo. And it backfired spectacularly. The judge saw right through it. Layla lost everything. I smiled, walking back to the living room. Layla, remember your divorce from Marcus? The faked evidence? The judge's ruling? She went pale. How did you? Want to risk another fraud charge because helping Meredith fake an affair with her comatose son would definitely count as fraud. I I should go. Layla grabbed her purse, practically running for the door. You stupid girl, Meredith hissed after she left. You have no idea what you're doing. Actually, I do. I showed her my phone screen, a recording app, running. Every word, Meredith, every threat, every scheme. She lunged for my phone, but I stepped back. Careful. Assault would look bad in court. Court? Yes, court. where I'll be filing harassment charges, where Chad will testify about the missing money from his mother's accounts, where the hospital board will hear about Stephanie. The mask finally cracked completely. Meredith's face contorted with pure hatred. He was supposed to be mine, she snarled. My son, my house, my life to control. You're nothing. Just another Lila, another obstacle. No, I said quietly. I'm the woman Owen chose to protect from you, the woman he gave everything to because he knew exactly who you are. My phone buzzed again. A message from the hospital. Mr. Swanson showing signs of increased brain activity. Meredith saw the message over my shoulder. Her eyes widened. When he wakes up, I continued, who do you think he'll believe? The wife he protected or the mother he warned me about? She grabbed her purse, hands shaking. This isn't over. Yes, it is. You have 29 days to move out. After that, I'm changing the locks. Legally. After she stormed out, I called Chad. It worked, I told him. Layla cracked exactly like you said she would. Aunt Meredith's predictable, he replied. She always uses the same plays. But Vivian, be careful. She's never lost before. She'll be desperate. Let her be desperate. I have the truth on my side. That night, as I reclaimed my bedroom for the first time in weeks, I found something tucked under my pillow, a photo of Owen and me on our wedding day, torn in half. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You think you've won? I'm just getting started. Hope you're ready for war. I took a picture of the torn photo and sent it to Kendra with the message, evidence of harassment and threats. Keep a file. Then I lay down in my own bed, in my own room, in my own house, and finally let myself smile. Meredith wanted war. Fine. But she didn't know that I'd been preparing for this battle long before it began. The hospital called at 3 a.m. Owen's brain activity had spiked. By the time I arrived, Meredith was already there, trying to block my way into his room. Family only right now, she said. I held up my phone, showing her the recording app. Want to explain to the doctors why you're preventing his wife from seeing him? She stepped aside, her face twisted with rage. Inside, Owen's monitors were beeping steadily. His fingers twitched, the first movement I'd seen in weeks. I took his hand, and for a moment I swore he squeezed back. I have something for you, I whispered, pulling out my phone. I pressed play on the audio file Kendra had helped me prepare. The recording of Meredith and Stephanie played clearly. Just keep her away from him. Yes, I know you're not really a nurse. The money will be worth it. What are you doing? Meredith lunged forward, but Chad appeared in the doorway, blocking her path. Let her finish, Aunt Meredith, he said firmly. The recording continued. Meredith discussing the fake affair evidence with Layla, threatening me, admitting to her schemes. Owen's heart rate monitor began beeping faster. Turn that off, Meredith shrieked. Mrs. Swanson? Dr. Roberts appeared behind Chad. Is everything all right? Actually, doctor, I said calmly, I have some concerns about patient safety I need to discuss with you and the hospital board. The next few hours were a whirlwind. The hospital board convened an emergency meeting. I played the recordings, showed the evidence. Chad testified about his mother's missing money. The unlicensed nurse scandal broke everything wide open. By noon, Meredith and Jonathan were banned from the hospital. You'll regret this, Meredith spat as security escorted them out. I'll destroy you. Check your email, I called after her. Back in my house, I'd found financial documents hidden in Meredith's temporary room, records of money moved from Owen's business accounts to private ones in her name. I'd sent copies to everyone, the hospital board, Owen's business partners, their family lawyer. My phone started ringing immediately. Owen's business partners, their family friends, everyone wanting to know about the money Meredith had stolen. It's all falling apart, Chad said, watching the chaos unfold. Years of her schemes exposed in one day. Kendra arrived with more news. The bank's freezing the accounts Meredith accessed. They're launching an investigation. By evening, Meredith's carefully constructed world had crumbled. Her country club membership was revoked. Their family friends stopped taking her calls. The police wanted to question her about financial fraud. I returned to Owen's room that night to find his eyes flickering beneath their lids. The doctor said he was fighting to wake up. Keep talking to him, Dr. Roberts encouraged. He can hear you. I sat beside him, holding his hand. You were right about your mother, but you were also right about me. I didn't let her win. His fingers twitched again. A commotion erupted in the hallway. Meredith had returned, looking wild-eyed and disheveled. You think you've won? She screamed from the doorway. I made him everything he is. I controlled everything. He's mine. Security rushed forward, but not before Owen's eyes snapped open. Mom? His voice was weak but clear. The room froze. Meredith's face lit up with triumph. Owen, darling, I'm here. Vivian has been. Get out. His words were quiet but firm. What? I heard everything. Get out. Meredith staggered back like she'd been slapped. Owen, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. His hand tightened around mine. I've always understood. That's why I protected Vivian from you. Now get out of our lives. Security finally reached her, gently but firmly escorting her away. Her wails echoed down the hallway. I'm sorry, Owen whispered to me. I knew she'd try something if anything happened to me. That's why the house, the accounts. Shh, I squeezed his hand. Rest. Everything's taken care of. Later that night, Kendra texted me a news link. Meredith had been arrested, not just for the financial fraud, but for attempting to practice medicine without a license through her fake nurse scheme. How does it feel? Chad asked when he visited the next day. Taking down the great Meredith? I watched Owen sleeping peacefully, properly monitored by real nurses now. It feels. My phone buzzed. A final text from Meredith. You've ruined everything. I hope you're happy. I deleted it without responding. She'd lost everything, her reputation, her social standing, her control. The thing she feared most had happened. People saw her for who she really was. Owen stirred, opening his eyes. You're still here. Always. Did she really try to? Yes, but she forgot something important. What's that? I smiled, thinking of the house deed, the recordings, the evidence I'd gathered. You married someone smarter than she is. His answering smile was worth everything we'd been through. But as I watched him drift back to sleep, I wondered, at what cost had this victory come? Owen gripped the parallel bars in physical therapy, his knuckles white with effort. Tell me again, he said between breaths, about the moment she realized she'd lost. I steadied his elbow as he took another shaky step. Which moment? When the hospital banned her? When her friends abandoned her? Or when she was arrested in front of her entire country club? He managed a weak laugh. All of it. I need the motivation. You're doing great without it, his therapist encouraged. 3 more steps. We'd developed this routine. He'd ask for details about Meredith's downfall during his hardest therapy sessions, using the satisfaction as fuel to push through the pain. Did you know, he said, pausing to catch his breath, that she tried to visit last week? My hand tightened on his elbow. What? Dad came too, but not to support her. Owen took another step. He's filing for divorce. I helped him to his wheelchair when the session ended. How do you feel about that? Honestly, relieved. He looked up at me. But I see how this victory has changed you. Back home, I found myself staring at the spot where Meredith had once stood, declaring her ownership of our lives. The house felt different now, cleaner, but somehow haunted by what had happened here. I got the final report from the forensic accountant, Kendra said over coffee in our kitchen. Meredith stole over $2 million from Owen's business accounts over the years, small amounts, building up. What happens now? She's facing serious prison time. The plea deal offers 3 years plus full restitution. I stirred my coffee, watching the liquid swirl. Was it worth it? All of it? Hey. Kendra grabbed my hand. She tried to destroy you, to take everything. You protected yourself, Owen, and probably future victims. The doorbell rang. Chad stood there with a box of old photos. Found these at my mom's house. Thought you should see them. The photos showed a pattern. Meredith, with different families over the years, always inserting herself, always followed by destruction, divorces, bankruptcies, broken relationships. You didn't just stop her with you, Chad said. You stopped her for good. That evening, Owen wheeled himself onto our back porch. His strength was returning, but the emotional wounds were still raw. I keep thinking, he said, watching the sunset, about all the signs I ignored growing up. The way she controlled everything. Everyone. I sat beside him. You didn't ignore them. You prepared for them. The house. The accounts. But I never thought she'd go this far. He took my hand. When I was in the coma, I could hear everything. Her threats, your strength. I wanted so badly to wake up and stop her. You did wake up at exactly the right moment. He smiled. To find my wife had already handled everything. A car pulled up in front of our house. Jonathan stepped out, looking older than I remembered. Can I come in? He asked from the bottom of the porch steps. I owe you both an apology. Over tea, Jonathan laid out the years of Meredith's manipulation, of him, of Owen, of everyone around her. I enabled her, he admitted, but watching her try to destroy you, Vivian, it finally opened my eyes. Why didn't you stop her sooner? Owen asked. Fear, habit, love, maybe, but mostly cowardice. Jonathan pulled out an envelope. This is everything I know about her other schemes. The DA might need it. After he left, Owen and I sat in comfortable silence. We should redecorate, I finally said. Make the house ours again. Already planning to. He pointed to his phone, showing me paint samples. But first, I need to ask, are you okay? Really okay? I thought about it. About the rage that had driven me, the satisfaction of winning, the cost of victory. I'm different, I admitted. Stronger, maybe. Harder, definitely. But not broken. No, he smiled. Not broken at all. The next morning, I found a letter in our mailbox from Meredith's attorney. Inside was a single line. She's accepting the plea deal. I showed it to Owen over breakfast. It's really over. Not quite, he said. We still have to live with what happened, with who we've become. And who have we become? He reached across the table, taking my hand. Survivors, warriors, but most importantly, still us. I thought about Meredith, about power and revenge and justice, about the fine line between protecting yourself and losing yourself. They were wrong about me, I said finally. I wasn't just your wife. I was the fortress you built, and I never burned without leaving embers. Owen squeezed my hand. No, he said softly. You were always the fortress. I just helped with the blueprints. Outside, the morning sun painted our house a new light. Inside, we began again. Stronger for the battle, wiser for the cost, but still unquestionably, unshakably ourselves.